It all kicks off with this insanely popular autumn game, Noblesse Fantasia. But yeah, sure, on paper it's just an autumn game title, but behind the label, it's a full-blown magic action fantasy world where their whole mission is to bring down the toughest villain out there, Tilty, because she's the big boss everyone will have to claw their way through. He swears that everything he became was for her. He threw his whole life into being a sword saint, chasing his destiny, and just like that, everything flips, right from this peaceful little village tucked beneath the mountain. Sold gets knocked to the ground after that brutal clash, and his dad leans in and tells him the match is basically done. But even when his dad yells his name to make him stop, the kid refuses to listen. He just gets back up and snaps, "I'm not done yet." He rockets back in, screaming at his dad to get ready, while the older man scrambles to get him to slow down. A villager passing by pauses, then watches them laugh and joke, because the way the Master Ranger stays hyped all the time is just wild. And right nearby, an old lady clocks it too, then wonders what the hardworking little lord is selling to train like this every single day. The dad starts sweating for real, then blurts out, "Look, can we just take a quick break?" But Saul just stares at him, locked in completely, and tells his dad he needs to train him way harder than this, because he can't cast a single spell, so he has to carve his way forward with his sword instead. Everything's going down in this tiny, peaceful village lost in the middle of nowhere. And guess what? This whole place is hidden deep inside the kingdom of Albert. This is the world of the game Noblesse Fantasia, and it turns out the kid was born straight into the Ranger family, minor nobles tucked out in the middle of nowhere, deep in the countryside. Sold finally realizes the truth. He didn't just wake up in this world. He got reincarnated as a sword. Right from the moment he was born, his new parents looked at him and named him Sold Ranger. He remembers his very first wake-up, then locking eyes with two strangers who just stared back at him like they already knew his name. But the moment they lifted him up, he started snapping the pieces together, catching every name and job people threw into the conversation. Eventually it clicked. He wasn't living in real life at all. He was stuck in some random corner of the game world, as the Baron's son, important on paper, but totally irrelevant to the real story. He just knew there had to be a real reason they tossed him into a world inside a game like this. Even with his new life on the verge of everything he dreamed of, his dad yanks him back with one simple call: time to face reality. Sold's dad yanks him over like it's urgent, drops a serious message, and it turns out to be the worst news a gamer could ever hear. His dad drops the bomb that the Ranger family hasn't been able to use magic for generations, and it leaves. Sold's dreams shattered, because this game world runs on magic, and it doesn't just ask you to play, it demands you save the world from the beasts. So, realizing he can't use any of it hits him like a truck. He just freezes, staring into nothing as the words try to escape from I. In a world like this, someone who can't use magic gets treated like he's useless, like he has no real role in the story. But even then, he won't quit trying to be special. He clings to destiny like it's life itself, then bursts out of the house screaming for his dad to come see what he dug up in the attic. Attic Sold, eyes lighting up, holds up an ancient scroll with a warrior's face on it, like he just struck gold and finally hit his big break, and he swears he cracked a secret technique, demon god-style swordsmanship, but his dad's just standing there, white-knuckled and drowning in stress. The scroll spills a wild power, demonic energy you can lock inside your body, so your own soul becomes a weapon. It claims that from this exact stance, the user can unleash a lethal kill move called Kamarasen. Sold is absolutely electric. He's convinced he uncovered a secret game mechanic hiding in the real world, and he's absolutely sure this technique is the only way forward for someone like him, someone who can't use a single ounce of magic. Sword raised high, he roars that destiny is calling, and that he's about to master the demon god style, but his dad shuts him down right away and tells him, flat out, that he's got it all wrong. It really rips the whole thing wide open. Turns out the dad flat out admits that scroll is a family heirloom, passed down for generations, but then it hits him, he finally drops the truth, and the whole secret technique turns out to be a total fake. Turns out every man in their family, back 3 whole generations, spent training trying to crack that scroll. And none of them, literally not a single one, could ever make the move land for real. Dad insists the ancestors probably cooked up the whole thing just to dangle false hope in front of kids who didn't have a single ounce of magic, so they'd leave without throwing a tantrum. He stood there dumbfounded, realizing the legendary scroll was nothing more than a fairy tale written on paper. Sold stares at the scroll, completely crushed, because he can't stop thinking, what if this is all a fake? But his dad leans in and tells him, it's totally fine. if you can't use magic or that exact style. He tells them their family has guarded this peaceful land for generations, and trust me, that kind of life is honestly the good kind. They just stood there in dead silence, staring out at the enormous world like it was daring them to move. Then Sold suddenly snaps out of it and erupts, yelling that his dad must be lying about the scroll being worthless. He won't believe it for a single second. He explodes in a shout that he'll prove it's real no matter what hits next. From that day forward, he starts training every single day, right under his dad's watchful guidance. 3 whole years slam by, and Saul has grown like crazy. But no matter how hard he tries, he still can't make the demon god style work. Dad stares him down and says, "It's all just a sketch in a book," then presses, "So are you finally ready to quit?" But Saul keeps swinging again and again, flat out refusing to let his dream die. Sold locks eyes with his dad, blasts out, "I'm never giving up," and makes it crystal clear he's staying on this path. And his dad just lets out a heavy sigh, tells him it's fine, and lets him keep going until he finally feels satisfied. But for now, Dad orders them to head home or Mom will flip out, and Sold quickly jumps in, saying they're calling it a day. Staring at his parents and the maid back at the house, Sold realizes he didn't end up in trouble at all. He landed in a genuinely kind family. And honestly, life feels amazing. Big family dinners, then afternoon horse rides tearing through the fields like pure freedom. He and his dad spend their days fishing. His mom lounges nearby at the picnic, and he openly says he's got zero complaints about living this perfect, peaceful life. But when the sun sinks behind the estate and the stars flicker on, everything suddenly feels wildly different. Sold lay awake in his room, locked on the ceiling, gripping the truth that he desperately wants to believe in something real and bigger. And if it's really going to click, there's got to be a damn good reason he got reincarnated as a nobody noble in this world. Outside, the sky sours to gray, and relentless rain crashes down on the silent house. Sold blurts to his mom where his dad went, and she snaps back that he took off early to meet the other nobles. She looks totally thrown off, staring at the whole situation like, "Wait, why would country nobles like us even get invited?" But Saul just glares out the window at the rain, and for a second, he's totally stuck in his own thoughts. He tells her he's heading out to train solo, and she snaps that he better not push too hard, the weather's awful. As he strides along, he can't help but think he's been sharpening his sword skill every single day, and somehow he's already 10 years old now. He can't stop wondering if the day will ever finally arrive, when he gets to unleash the demon god style for real. He snaps his head side to side and tells himself flat out, staying negative changes nothing. He forces himself to stay hopeful, clings to the belief that the style he's imagining isn't just a fantasy, it's his real destiny. Suddenly, something flashes in front of him, and it freezes him in his tracks. He bolts toward the trees, convinced that some eerie sound is echoing from deep inside the woods. Rain lashes down hard in the middle of the woods. As Sold barrels through the trees, he slows for a split second to gulp air because he spots a young girl crumpled face down in the mud, and his mind goes blank at what he's seeing. He barrels over, drops to his knees beside her, and fires off, "Are you okay?" before demanding why she's stuck out here in the middle of this storm. But the second he clocks her bare feet, his mind races. Like, is she a runaway with nowhere left to go? The girl lets out a feeble groan, and Soul rushes to persuade her to stay, eyeing her with urgent intensity as he pleads. Staring at her tear-streaked face, I couldn't stop asking myself how on earth she'd ended up here. Right then, something snapped into view, and his body locked up like a statue. A weird power starts ripping through the air, and the moment it hits, Sold realizes the rain is freezing mid-drop, right in front of him, and he's completely clueless about what's happening. Sold goes completely still. His eyes snap wide as he scrambles for the words, but he stammers that this can't possibly be real, insisting to himself that none of it is happening, like he's about to lose it while. As he glares at the monster's fangs, panic crawls in. Why did something like this have to crash into his life, right here, right now? He digs in his heels, standing firm between the girl and that massive shadow. When he looks closer, he realizes it's not just any enemy. It's the high-level boss from the end of the game he just cleared. And he spirals into panic, convinced fate picked him for a reason, until doubt hits hard and he wonders if this is all he'll ever get for trusting it. Leaving in his new life, as the wolf looms over them, he can't stop asking if his fate is really just to die here, right now, without any. He can't even make it mean a thing, because in his head, it's impossible, and the whole ending feels brutally, unfairly cruel. So he surges forward, snatches the girl, and twists out of the way at the exact moment as a colossal blast of ice crashes into the ground right where they were standing a second ago. The two of them slammed into the ground after the blast, Tilty groaned through the pain, while Saul just stood there trying to make sense of what had happened. But Tilty locks eyes with him and blurts out that she's sorry, then explains that those slave traders didn't just sell people, they let that monster loose just to hunt her down again and snatch her back. She spirals into full panic, convinced she's trapped, and pleads with him to escape, like, right now, begging him to get out of there. He runs like his life depends on it, desperate to keep her from turning this into someone else's suffering. Sold is completely stunned as she finally cracks, tears spill hard, and she looks completely shattered by the wreck she's made. Staring at her face, Sold freezes. Her eyes look exactly like the ones that belonged to straight toward the biggest threat from the game he worshipped, the legendary villain, Tilty Majester. She was the one girl everyone in the game despised, because she spent every second tormenting the main character, pulling off awful things. But in every version of the story, she's doomed from the start. She loses everything, until she's left in total ruin. After he finally beats the game, the truth about Tilty's past clicks into place, and she finally realizes every person she ever loved was gone already, dead, so she's left standing there, totally alone. She was born to a mistress, and the world treated her like a curse. Everyone hated her so she scraped by in total poverty, until her mother got murdered, and then they snatched her away and chained her into a brutal life of slavery. A noble family finally arrived from her homeland, swooped in, and hauled her to safety. But the horror didn't end. Everyone was dragged into the slaughter too. Tilty couldn't take it anymore. She started to resent the whole world for only serving misery to everyone around her. Pretty soon she couldn't stand who she was anymore, and she kept spiraling, and she sank into the deepest heartbreak, until one day she transformed into the villain everybody dreaded. Sold locks eyes with the crying girl, and boom, he realizes she's got the exact same eyes as the villain from the game. He can't shake the thought, if he walks away, does it unlock the monster in her? And that idea slams into him like a freight train. So he yanks his sword out and plants himself right in front of the chained girl, shielding her with his life. A giant wolf crashes in and blurts that he finally understands what's going on, and Soul can't hold back. What the heck are you? But the question hangs mid-sentence. Staring at the beast, he realized this was the moment he'd been born to crush. With tears blurring her eyes, she looks up at him and chokes out, "My name is Tilty." Sold finally gets it. This is why he was born into the world as a noble, with real freedom to do whatever he wants. He leans in and tells Tilty, "I'm the one who will rewrite your destiny." He erupts in a loud yell as he readies himself to go to war. Tilty just stares, frozen in pure shock, because his sword is starting to glow. Sold unleashed a massive surge of energy that slammed straight into the giant wolf, and it just sat there on the ground, staring. As the last light dies out, Soul finally clocks it. He didn't realize it yet, but he just triggered a secret slice of the game that almost nobody ever finds, and then he leans in and starts explaining. The trick to unlocking this power is brutally specific. You've got to choose to fight with a sword, plant your feet and refuse to move, and slam the enemy's attack head-on. And the real magic is that burning, desperate urge to protect someone no matter what. Tilty watches in sheer, jaw-dropping. Then as the cell kicks in, it starts flooding every inch of him with pure, wild, demonic power. This is where the whole nightmare begins. Of the demon god style, he unleashes a technique that turns his entire being into nothing but a living blade. He stays crouched and low, and the moment he moves, he turns into a blur. He heaves his sword up with everything he's got, shouting a special ice wolf strike as he goes. It slams straight into the wolf's face, blasting shards of energy everywhere the moment the hit lands clean. Sold rips through with his massive strike, drops low as the power surges past. Then the giant wolf gets absolutely demolished by the sheer force of the hit. And when Sold finally unlocks the secret demon god style, he realizes it's the real deal, not some bedtime story. Then he bursts out laughing under his breath, stunned that the legends were actually true. So he slides his sword back into its sheath, turns to leave, and as he walks off, he realizes every minute of that brutal training paid off, because then he storms right up to Tilty, locks eyes with her, and declares, "I'm the Sword Ranger, and you're basically my destiny." So it clicks, he finally remembers why he was reincarnated in the first place. Then he flashes her a giant smile, swears everything will be fine now, and keeps going making. She starts crying happy tears, swallows a sob, and tells him she's just thrilled to be at his side, because together they're going to change the world. She springs up for a massive hug, and Sold's eyes go wide as he blurts out that dark fate the villain has in store for her, before he snaps into, "I'll take care of it." He'll slice down anyone or anything that dares to stand in his way. Meanwhile, far off on a black cliff, a towering castle gets hammered as a lightning storm rips through inside. On a throne, some guy leans forward and demands, "Is Fenrir back yet?" And his followers have to choke out the bad news. The wolf has gone quiet, and there's been nothing from the wolf or the slave trader. Back at the dark castle, the masked leader's fury simmers, and he snaps at his crew to go find that guy right now because he's about. He's completely hooked on finding Tilty. He keeps fixating on that giant skull, scanning every inch like it might reveal where she vanished. And there, perched on a bone-made throne, he declares Tilty his beloved sister, and vows to himself he'll drag her back home no matter what. Meanwhile, a carriage rattles up to the ranger mansion at night, and inside sits a man who looks utterly wrecked by his brutal long day of work. So Garland storms through the front door and yells that he's finally home, while the family's wet nurse, Baba, is already waiting to greet him. But Sold rockets over to greet his dad, and right beside him the family introduces Tilty, telling Garland exactly who she is. Then they drop the bombshell and tell him they're officially welcoming Tilty into the Ranger family, right up until the next twist cuts them off. It completely blindsides Garland. He stares at Sold with pure shock on his face and blurts, "What the heck is actually going on?" At last, the mansion finally calms down for Muro, Baba, the wet nurse, and Tilty, who's safe at last from the shadows of her dark past. Now the entire Ranger crew finally gathers as Garland runs the house, while Sold keeps glaringly quiet about the truth. He's a reincarnator, and the secret's locked away in his own mind. The whole family crowds around the dining table, while Garland tries to make sense of the story. And that's how he saved Tilty from a monster and brought her back. Then he stares his dad straight in the eyes like, "I need you to hear this." But Garland simply folds his arms and drinks it all in. Muro glances his way, pushing him to admit that the poor girl's situation is nothing short of tragic. So then the room goes dead silent when they finally clock it. Tilty has literally nobody left to run home to. Saul doesn't waste a second. She pleads with her dad to let her stay, and Garland just stares for a beat, weighing everything in his head while he flips the whole mood in an instant and throws up a huge thumbs up, telling them, "No problem at all," and he winks as he says, "Doing good deeds. That's just what a noble family does." He springs to his feet and proudly declares that she's officially Tilty Ranger now, and the crowd erupts in cheers, happy, loud, and thrilled. So he flashed a grin at himself, knowing they'd finally clawed their way forward and started reshaping the future. But he understands the stakes. Tilty is the game's villain in Noblesse Fantasia Asterisk, and she's meant to be totally destroyed. Every single thing in this world traces back to a game he once sold and played in his past life. And he's dead certain he got reincarnated just to save Tilty. He knows he's got to stick close to her to keep her safe, so when Garland orders him to teach her about their home, Saul doesn't hesitate for a second. He agrees, feeling like his plan to bring her into the family paid off exactly the way he dreamed it would. Because she's 9 and 1 year younger than him, Sold grins at her and declares, "You're stuck with me now, I'm your big brother." Which makes Tilty's face blaze red as she scrambles to find the words to answer. But the pressure crushes her, and she suddenly bolts out of the room, leaving. He storms off, Sold standing there, totally frozen. Then he yells her name in pure shock. Later on, Garland panics because she looks terrified, while Sold leans in to ask his mom if she's being gentle, and Merle promises, "Yes, even." Tilty's still locked behind closed doors, refusing to speak to any of them. Muro says Tilty's probably just trying to process her feelings, so they shouldn't push. So just wait, Garland's certain she'll come around and open up to them, even if she's struggling right now. The whole family just stands there, faces dead serious, like they can't look away. And Soul agrees with his mom, staring at the gut-punch truth. Tilty must feel absolutely crushed, getting hit with the news that she's suddenly got a whole new family. As the night drags on, Sold finally brings up the slave market cleanup plan his dad mentioned earlier. Garland drops a bombshell. Those nobles didn't just stumble into it. They literally teamed up on purpose to take down that mission. They did manage to break the slaves free and get them to safety, but the whole organization still didn't get wiped out. Sold slams on the brakes, then snaps. Wait, was Tilty one of the people caught in that? It hits him all at once. She wasn't free at all before they finally found her, and suddenly every piece of the puzzle locks into place. That earlier wolf, no doubt, those traitors sent it to rip her back and haul her into that slave organization. Sold can't believe it. Those people are really using the legendary beast Fenrir like it's nothing. So it leaves him staring in disbelief. Why would they jump through all that chaos just to zero in on Tilty? He keeps staring at the organization hiding behind the slave traders, and then he notices Tilty, small, shaken, and terrified, like he's seeing her last shred of safety vanish. And that's when it hits him. he starts to suspect these exact guys are the ones pulling the strings behind Tilty's doom flag. Back in the present, Garland plants himself in the field and tells Sold, "All right, show me what you're really made of." Imagine style or not, he declares he's a master, and says he's ready right now to prove that his skills don't just talk. Beneath a razor-bright crescent moon, Saul plants his stance while his dad watches him like a hawk. He hoists his sword to the sky and pours every ounce of his focus into the coming strike. Reliving the second he stood face to face with Fenrir and finally felt the ley lines, raw power blast through him for the very first time. That same wild energy is ripping through his body right now, and his blade is ready to strike. Sold locks eyes with his dad and screams that those legends were real after all. It's the secret ranger technique, one the heir alone is supposed to know. He shouts the demon god's name, and Style is hit with such shock that Garland can't even scrape together a reply. Sold tries to flex the ice wolf flash, but his wooden sword instantly shatters in his hands. The second the sword snaps, Sold flips out, panicking, while his dad just stands there, staring at him like he's completely lost his mind. Garland says he'll just buy him a brand new one, but Sold won't back down. He keeps swearing the power is real. Truth is, ever since that day, he hasn't managed to pull off that style even once. He clamps his grip on the busted handle and suddenly realizes this secret move only works if you hit the right kind of trigger. He's gotta hunt down that trigger fast, master the style in a hurry, and keep Tilty out of harm's way from any more attacks. Especially now that Tilty's finally been living in pure peace ever since the Rangers officially took her in. The whole family crowds around the table for a massive pizza feast. Everyone's laughing and digging in, and even Tilty gets a brand new dress that Murrow made just for her, while their wet nurse cheers her on like it's a celebration. Garland and Sold roll back from their trip, bragging hard, standing there with a huge fish stuffed in the crab they hauled in, But the moment they all pile on compliments and hype at once, Tilty just freezes, utterly drowned in it. Suddenly, everyone's attention snaps to her. Then she bolts out of the room, leaving the rest of the family frozen mid-step, staring as she disappears. There's no time to finish the thought as she rushes off. Garland is completely thrown off. He grumbles that she still won't open up to him, and Merle shoots back that some things can't be rushed, and they just can. He can't just rush it. He sells watches, convinced this setup is enough to keep everyone safe, even as doubt gnaws at him. So he can't stop wondering, did saving Tilty from a dark future really turn out this easy? That night, a brutal thunderstorm crashes over the house. Lightning rips across the sky, while he lies awake in bed. He locks eyes with the ceiling, convinced there's one huge detail in Tilty's story he's about to forget. The house explodes with the crack of shattering glass, and Sold's eyes shoot wide open as he rockets out of bed, snatches his sword, and sprints into the dark, trying to figure out what that terrifying noise was. He snaps to it, it's coming from Tilty's room, then he doesn't hesitate for a single second. And he shoves the door wide, bracing for whatever waits on the other side. Only the room is pitch black. But what he sees is way worse than he ever imagined. He blurts out Tilty's name and screams as he lays eyes on the window shattered. 3 creepy bat monsters started circling her bed, and Tilty curled into a tight ball, trapped inside a nightmare. A swirling blob of dark energy churns in the air. Sold gapes at it, trying to name what he's seeing, until he finally realizes it's nothing but pure darkness. The one-eyed monsters hiss in grotesque bursts, hovering right over her like they're about to strike. Sold is caught totally off guard, staring at the impossible sight. Why a magical beast would ever show up here, of all places, but he refuses to let the shock knock him off his feet. He screams for Tilty again, yanks his sword free, and charges in like he's ready to fight them head-on. Sold lunges forward, trying to swing with the only weapon he's got, yet he's still. Then he snaps back to reality. His sword is still broken, and that's a total disaster for a fight like this. The monsters don't even think about stopping. One of them rips the air with a sharp screech as they keep circling the room. Sold swings his broken hilt to bat them off, muttering curses under his breath, then flicks his eyes toward Tilty. He tells Tilty to hang on just a little longer, then he dashes off to find his dad for help, but then she suddenly snaps, yelling at him to leave her alone, and it totally blindsides him. Tilty bursts into tears, blurted out, "I'm sorry," and admits that stuff like this always happens to her and she keeps going, swearing she has no clue why disaster just keeps tailing her everywhere she turns. Sold stares at her, lets her pain hit like a punch, and murmurs her name under his breath as he makes his choice. He fires back, yelling that he's not walking away from her, because now they're family. Sold freezes in shock when he finally realizes that his promise to stay together was the worst mistake of his life as two. With Tilty clinging to him and sobbing, she whispers that it was him who saved her and then tells you how his entire family welcomed her like she was their own, open arms and all. But even with that kind of love, she felt happy for just a heartbeat, then admitted it, because she knew that pure happiness was exactly what made her hesitate. The shadows surge in and drown everything out as she shrieks, "It's hopeless. Get out of here. I shouldn't even be here." She screams that if they stay, they'll sink everyone with them, and Soul just freezes in place until it finally hits. Tilty bursts into tears, swearing she'll drag them all into misery, then Wright freezes, remembering every single thing from the game. This is the secret backstory behind the villains in Noblesse Fantasia ***, the story you only get after the credits, when the real players finally show their cards, revealing one vivid episode from her life, a memory that ties back to the story he just played through. It's the tale of a noble family who took in Tilty, and how their whole world collapsed, ending with every last one of them dead because of her. A lightning strike memory rips through Sold's head. His whole family gets butchered in the game's original timeline, over and over like a nightmare. As he watches Tilty shatter in front of him, a brutal memory crashes back, showing him the tragedy he's been trying to forget. It was the Ranger family all along. He stood there, staring as dark energy swarmed her, frozen in place. Tilty sobs, trembling through her tears, begging him to kick her out and walk away, because if he doesn't, it'll be too late. Saul locks eyes with her, dead serious and laser-focused, like he's already decided and nothing can change it. He knows that if he just turns his back and quits getting tangled up with Tilty right now, everything will fall into place. Then maybe his family could actually live through it and dodge being murdered. If we stop that brutal ending, we save everyone and cut down the next tragedy before it even happens. But Soul doesn't even flinch. She yanks her into a bone-crushing hug, slicing straight through the dark shadows. Tilty stared up at him in sheer disbelief, her mouth clamped shut as she struggled to even form the words. How was he still holding on? Shadow monsters burst into the room, swarming in a thunder of creepy, grinding creaks. But Soul doesn't blink, eyes nailed to Tilty as they charge in. Tilty squirms in his grip, screaming at him to stop and to let her go, but Soul grips her even harder, swearing he's not going anywhere, and he's never, ever letting go. He challenges her, "Does it even matter if I'm miserable?" Then leans in and tells her she's not alone. He reminds her that they finally have parents now, and then he's right there beside her, steady and ready whenever she needs him. Soul smiles and declares she's already his precious sister, swearing he'll protect her with his life. The words finally land, and Tilty completely snaps, sobbing hard against his chest like she can't hold herself together. Through tears that drown everything, she barely manages to blurt out a shaky, "Thank you." She finally calls him her big brother, and the dark energy starts to vanish from the room like it's getting chased out. Sold leans over Tilty and shouts her name, and right when he looks around, that creepy dark energy is gone for good. Their eyes pop wide in full shock, like everything flipped so fast they couldn't even process what they were seeing. Tilty finally gives in, stops fighting the wave, and lets the tears roll, looking calmer than she was just a second ago. Sold watches her with a gentle grin, finally breathing easy, because he made it in time to reach her and shut the darkness down. He thinks, "I don't fully understand what that dark power was, but I know this for sure. If it's only going to bring trouble, I'm not letting it in." Right then his parents storm into the room, his dad shouting, "What's wrong with Tilty?" while his mom stares at Sold, yelling, "What the heck just happened?" But Saul locks eyes with both of them and flat out tells them he needs a brand new sword. With a hard, serious stare, he tells you straight up that he needs to get way stronger than he is right now. He vows to protect Tilty no matter what, and swears he'll be the one who steps in and wipes out any darkness that dares to ruin her life. His mom just freezes in total shock, while his dad lets out a smug smirk, clearly stunned, like he's genuinely impressed by that kid's unstoppable resolve. Sold's dad finally agrees to hook him up with an insane custom sword, and Sold practically bursts with excitement as he races to thank him. They stare out over Swordguest, and his dad grins like a promise. "I'm gonna introduce you to the best smith around." But at the shop, two suited guys burst out running, screaming that they're never coming back. The smith doesn't even flinch, just stands there with a hammer, spits "good riddance," because all they cared about was fashion. She yanks her goggles up, spits venom about how she can't stand nobles, and just then Sold stands there, calm as ever, sure he can charm her around and win. Determined to push that new blade, Tilty and his dad waste no time and sprint straight for the town of Gus. The city sprawls out like a giant beast, stretching as far as their eyes can reach down the road. The streets are jammed shoulder to shoulder, while carriages rattle past in every direction. Sold blurts out how loud and lively the whole place feels, and his dad leans in to explain that this is a massive trade hub, shipping by land and sea, so it all makes sense, but he leans in and warns him. Sure, two noble families keep this town running, yet all these crowds are also a magnet for some seriously shady characters. Sold's dad drops his gaze and tells Tilty to stay glued to him so she won't get lost in the crowd, and Tilty shoots back a jittery nod, swearing she won't. Sold reaches for her hand and pulls her close, urging them to stick together so they won't get swallowed up by the crowd. Tilty gazes up at him, grinning so wide her cheeks go red as she blurts out thanks, her big brother Sold for always looking out for her. Sold just smirks back, secretly thinking, man, she's finally starting to warm up to me. Strolling through the chaos of the busy market, he catches himself replaying how she had actually begged to tag along on the trip. And honestly, that made all the difference because he just wants to stay glued to her side, watching her back wherever they go so she never gets hurt. But right in the middle of their walk, both of them slam to a stop, staring in shock at what's waiting on the street. A street vendor just flicks fire magic from his finger and grills meat like it's the easiest thing in the world. Kids are laughing and sprinting around, blasting fire and water at each other while they play tag, and it gets wild. Up above their heads, a girl zooms through the clouds on a broom, racing to drop off those bags. The whole town's basically swimming in magic. Vendors are sizzling snacks with glowing fingers, kids are blasting it around just for fun, and it all sets up the next shockwave that makes it. In Noblesse Fantasia, magic isn't some rare miracle, it's as normal as breathing for most people. But Soul just stands there, fist clenched so tight it looks painful, and his dad and Tilty both know he's feeling left out, so his dad reassures him, says not everyone's cut out for magic, and Soul just nods along, quietly thanking him. He grabbed his hilt tight and snapped, I don't need magic, my sword is enough. And honestly, that demon god sword style he's training in, it doesn't just teach him moves, it smuggles in a wild, one-of-a-kind power all its own, even if he has to admit to himself that he's still miles away from truly mastering it. But his dad grins at that confidence and tells both of them, don't stop, keep moving, because they're finally about to grab their new gear. They finally stumble into this massive old-school workshop, and hanging above the front door, right where you can't miss it, is a giant sword sign. His dad blurts out, hello, and Sale dashes his eyes around, panicking like, is this place even open, because nobody answers back. A voice from inside the shop snaps, saying they're way too loud and demanding to know who's there. Then Sold's dad steps in and introduces himself, all formal and proud, as Baron Gallant Ranger. The person inside fires back that nobles can just get lost, and that comeback completely throws Sword and his dad for a loop. The dad blurts out fast that the master blacksmith didn't just help, he forged him that sword a long time ago, praying that. The moment the door finally swings open, a ruthless woman towers there, clutching a colossal hammer like a promise of doom. She cuts right through the tension, tells them the old man's gone, and since she's calling the shots now, orders them to clear out. Dad begins probing whether she's the master's kid, but she cuts him off fast, says her name is Frey, tells them to treat her like you, and spins around mid-sentence. But when Sold snaps up his courage, he tells her the truth. He wasn't lost at all. He was hunting for a sword of his very own. Frey shoots him a mean glare and barks that he's a cheeky little noble brat, then tells him to go ask his dad to buy him a toy sword. Sold stands frozen, insulted to the core, and before he even manages to get a single word out, the door slams shut, and the whole crew just stands there in the dust, stunned and stuck. Sold realizes that pulling the right strings to trigger an event and land a high-tier weapon is going to be brutal, not easy. Meanwhile, his dad is panicking, firing off apologies, because he had no idea the blacksmith's daughter had taken over the shop. So he shrugs and figures they should just hunt for a new spot. Yeah, even if he's not sure any other smiths in town are skilled enough. But Sold refuses to throw in the towel, runs to his dad, and insists he wants to try asking one more time, despite his dad screaming that it's a terrible idea. The kid just grins and tells her it's fine, because all he really wants is to talk to her the right way. His dad nods and agrees to scout around for other shops, then turns to Tilty and asks what she's up to, so Tilty decides, right then and there, to stay put with her big brother. The two of them huddle side by side in front of that sealed door, like any second now, everything's about to go down. And right then, Tilty looks super shaken and blurts, why did that woman back there act so terrifying? Soul doesn't look even a little worried, she just asks, did you manage to see what's hidden in the back of the shop? Tucked away inside were a bunch of brutal, heavy-duty swords, proof that she wasn't a fake at all. She was the real deal. At first glance, the swords hanging on the wall look battered and thick, like they were still half-made, unfinished, rough around the edges, but Sold can feel something special about them. Those blades have a pull to them that hooks him instantly. He strides straight back into the forge where Frey's working and tells her he's done with half measures. He needs a real talk. Tilty is rattling behind him, and when Frey whirls around, annoyance hits her hard as she snaps. Why do you think you can just barge in? But Saul cuts in, telling her he's got a request. He thrusts his own sword forward to show her just how jacked up that hilt is, and Frey lifts her goggles so she can finally see every ugly detail. Sold bluntly tells her he needs a brutal, unbreakable sword, one that can take everything he throws at it without snapping. Frey just freezes, totally blindsided, and blurts, "Who the hell are you?" He leans in and drops the truth, his name's Sold, and begs her for that weapon, because he'll do anything to keep his sister alive. But before they can even finish, voices burst from the door, asking if this is the same place that threw them out back then. Mobrub stomps in like a walking tank in his armor, roaring that he's on Lord Walger Debihip's orders, and then he demands they forge a sword right this instant. Sold blurts in shock when the vibe snaps in half, and Frey just sighs, rubbing her head like, it's always one thing after another on this cursed day. Mobrub digs in at the door, but Frey won't budge. She tells him her dad always refused to forge swords just to impress flashy nobles. That big brute surges closer, glares her down, and yells that her old man absolutely forged a blade for Lord Walger back in the day. Frey goes silent and stares at the ground, her face swallowed by shadow, then admits, quietly but clearly, that he's right. Her father really did forge it, but there's a terrifying reason behind it. She spills how Walger threatened her father, swearing he'd do anything to save his daughter, which she drags her mind back to when she was just a kid, replaying her dad teaching her the craft day after day, while he'd thunder about how a sword isn't some fancy decoration, you know what it's for, real fighting every time. And then he'd jab a finger at those flashy, pointless weapons and hiss, never dare make anything meant just to impress. He told her to forge only the swords she truly believed in, and he practically begged her not to fall into the exact same mistakes that haunted him. Frey stared at the memory of himself at the anvil, hearing his own words ring out. A sword is power, and he clung to that belief all the way to the very end. Frey's thoughts slammed back to that moment her dad snapped, calling himself a foolish old man, because he'd thrown everything away just to shield her, and she finally understands. This is the exact moment she has to gamble everything and make the real choice. Frey bellows that she's taken her father's spirit to heart, and she looks totally ready to explode into action. Ready to stand her ground, she tightens her grip on her hammer and swears she'll never forge again, because only the real fighting blades, the ones she believes in, can cut through everything. Tilty just stood there, staring at her in total awe as she reignited her spark again. But Mabrub just smirks at her, shrugging it off like her words are ancient history, because he's convinced swords are basically useless now. He rants that magic's all that matters, insisting one mage could wipe out 100 swordswingers with zero trouble. So to him, a blade is nothing more than a cheap fake magic staff, or some flashy jewelry a noble wears just to show off. Mabra snaps and grabs Frey by the collar, yanking her up as he screams that nobody wants a real weapon anymore. He leans in real close, whispers that Walger is expecting big things from her dad's old skills, so she should stop talking and get to work. Mabra blooms right over Frey and demands to know if she truly wants to get threatened too, and she groans through sheer frustration, pinned in that trap, when Sold suddenly bursts forward, shouting at the guy to stop, and he makes it crystal clear, if anyone here truly needs a real sword to fight, it's him. Frey just freezes, stunned out of her mind that this kid is stepping in for her, and Mabrub isn't even impressed. He glares down at the kid, stunned like, why is some random brat firing back at me? The knight snaps his swing without hesitation, blasting Sold flying clear across the room. Tilty shrieks for her brother. Mabrub tells him, watch your mouth, or I'll kill you on the spot. Sold crashes to the floor, grips his chest, and can't believe he let his guard drop like that. He feels absolutely stupid. He snaps his gaze upward, eyes blazing wide with pure shock because Tilty is right in the middle of the night, yelling at him to stop being cruel to her big brother. Tilty's snapping. She's sobbing, screaming, and swearing she'll never forgive whoever dares hurt her big brother, and then she stares like she's about to break. Frey looks like she's about to break as Mabrub snatches her, and hisses that if she wants to die with him and Frey, just losing it, R/3. She's right there, gripping her smithing hammer like it's a weapon, cursing the knight as a total bastard. Then it happens. Then Sold somehow hauls himself back up, snatches a brutal heavy blade off the shop floor, and Frey screams at him to drop her sword, but he does. But he completely shuts her out, stomps into a razor-perfect combat stance, and hoists that massive weapon like it weighs nothing at all. His gaze turns razor-sharp and icy as he orders the knight to get his hands off his sister, right now. While Frey just stands there, totally dumbfounded, trying to wrap his head around how a brat like him is even lifting a blade that heavy. Tilty keeps sobbing out for her brother, but Mabrub just keeps yelling, "Come on, you little shit," and he locks eyes with him through that helmet and fires back, demanding to know if the kid truly understands the chaos he's causing. No time to reply, this knight barrels straight at him, screaming that he doesn't care if he dies. Mabrub lets out a wild laugh and says he's got nothing to complain about. Then he blasts a massive fireball right after, still gripping the. Tilty just snaps, screams her head off as the blast's scorching heat races right at her. Sold stays stone calm while everything erupts, because he suddenly realizes he's finally feeling it, right there, and right the second he swings, a weird jolt snaps into his body and takes hold. Fenrir's power, yeah, that demonic beast he fought, is surging through him, and he can't even finish the thought. Pumping his whole body with raw power, he looks like he's about to smash through this and finish it, right now, because he hurls the massive blade forward, blasting a brutal wave of force straight ahead. The impact tears through the air, blasting everything clean away. Then Sold barks his move, the wolf flash strikes, and he slices straight through the knight's defense. Mabrub loses it and shrieks about his arm, totally freaking out as he gapes at that sword like, what the hell is happening? Mabrub is getting wrecked by the blow, while Frey hustles Tilty to safety. Sold plants his feet and stares ahead, thinking that a sword is basically pure power, and he bursts out that this is the exact power he's been waiting for, because he needs it to protect everyone he cares about. Frey is totally frozen, staring at what that kid just pulled off, while Tilty can't stop grinning, because she knows exactly what it means. It's finally over for the bad guys, Mabru's writhing in agony, and the glasses-wearing buddy is losing it, screaming his name as both of them bolt out of there. Mabrub hurls curses as he sprints, and his assistant pleads, "Wait up," before leaving her Sold and Tilty alone. Tilty launches into a hug, thanking her big brother for everything. He just checks she's okay, and she's shaking with excitement, swearing that move is just like the one he used before. So Sol only grins and nods, finally clicking everything into place because he still remembers going head-to-head with that massive wolf, Fenrir. It's just like that time. And just like that, it happens again. Mabrub yanks her in his grip, and it finally all clicks in his head. And then it hits him. Saving Tilty is the key to unlocking the Majin style, and he can finally breathe because she's safe. The cheap blade finally breaks, snapping clean off the handle, right as everything hits its limit, and Tilty's instantly panics, screaming that the sword has shattered into pieces. Sold stares at the useless hilt and snaps. This one failed too, realizing a normal sword simply can't take the Majin style. The kids both jolt when they spot Frey standing right there, arms crossed, staring at them like she's been waiting the whole time. Then she locks eyes with them and stares them down like she's ready to explode. The moment she's Sold and tilted, they drop to their knees and start bowing like crazy, apologizing nonstop, saying they're so sorry they wrecked one of her swords, but Frey tells them not to sweat it, then says she'll forge him a brand new one herself, and it completely leaves everyone stunned. She flashes him a tiny smile, and her mind races back when her dad was working at the anvil. He leaned in and told her, a sword isn't just steel, it's power. He leaned in and told her this was the power you need to fight your way through anything, and never betray what you truly believe in. Frey stares at the ruins and it hits him. His conviction isn't talk, it's the real deal, and he craves power to guard what matters. So she decides to forge a blade that can back it up. And she tells him, straight to his face, that she'll forge a mighty sword that refuses to break, no matter how brutally he swings it. She flashes a confident wink and a thumbs up, straight up promising she'll be the one to personally make sure the job gets done. Sold couldn't stop grinning at the thought of finally getting a weapon that can match his demon god style, and he joyfully thanks her. Both kids burst out thanking her, and Frey instantly puts on a tough front, telling them to ditch the formalities and just call her Frey. The moment he realized the new weapon idea had sold and pumped into reality, his mind snapped into place. This was exactly what he needed to power up to a whole new level of strength. Next stop, the massive mansion across town, and my situation is going from bad to worse fast. For Mabrub, who's standing there with his arm in a sling, while Lord Walger rips into him, saying every soldier who gets beaten by a kid gets fired on the spot. The knight starts spiraling into panic, and practically begs his master to hear him out, swearing the kid he just fought wasn't some run-of-the-mill brat at all. He explains that the boy's swordplay looks like pure magic, and when he adds that the silver-haired girl and the others left Walger behind, The shock hits so hard it's unbelievable. Back at the mansion, Lord Walger fires off the same bombshell again, this time that a silver-haired girl has been spotted, and his mohawk-wearing goons erupt laughing because things are finally getting wild. A thunderous shout of total shock erupts from the blacksmith shop and blasts straight into the street because someone sold. He can't believe what he's hearing. He blares that Frey can't make the sword, while Tilty just stares in confusion and demands to know why. Frey stays stone calm and just keeps repeating herself to the kids, telling them with absolute certainty that she can't forge that weapon for them right this second. She grills Sold, "Is it true you can't use a single shred of magic?" And he just nods, because that's exactly why he hammers his swordsmanship day after day. Frey jabs a finger straight into his face and snarls that his sword style is the very reason everything's falling apart. She tells me that the moment she watched him throw out that Ice Wolf flash move, she felt something wild and deep stirring right inside his technique. It felt like a tidal wave of demonic power. Then she finally says something. He's basically unleashing the Imagine style, a demonic fighting technique that taps into the real, raw power of demons. She brings up an ancient scroll that says the way to use that dark power is to let it sink into your body, so your entire soul transforms into a living blade. Frey breaks it down. Some fighters swing their swords like magical staffs, blasting spells with every strike, and even though Sold unleashed the power of ice, she points out that at first he wasn't really freezing anything. He was just coating the blade. But everything changed the second he forged the sword itself into raw magic, just so he could unleash his move, completely reshaping the weapon into a razor-sharp blade made of ice. She raises a snapped hilt and tells the kids, straight up, her regular swords can't cut it for this, admitting she never built them to survive that much pressure or that ruthless kind of fighting. Panic hits and Sold blurts out what they should do next, but Frey stays ice calm and fires back that the solution is dead simple. She tells them they only have to hunt for materials tough enough to survive his power. Then both kids are left staring at her, totally clueless what she even means. Frey tells you about the tale her dad swore by, this special stone that doesn't belong here at all, because it came from another world. Step into the magic dimension, a dungeon world where magical beasts lurk everywhere, and mana spills out like it's impossible to contain. Frey leans in and explains that the special ore from that dimension is so brutal and unbreakable, it can stand up to any demonic power. Leaving Tilty staring in shock, she whispers the stone's name under her breath like she can't believe it. Sold is all fired up and itching to know what kind of rock we're talking about, but Frey shuts him down with a hard stare and tells him to stay quiet. She finally blurts it out. The thing they've been hunting is called a monostone. As night crashes over the busy city streets, the crew grabs their gear and heads back to where they're staying. They rush back to the inn for food, then huddle up to hash everything out. Sold's dad gives a slow nod, and the light finally clicks. Turns out they don't just need skill to use the Imagine style, they need a legendary sword. He couldn't stop wondering, would a weapon like that truly make his special fighting style come to life? Sold admits it might be possible, but immediately says they still need a magic stone, and his dad bursts into laughter at how perfect the timing is. Right as the real price of a magic stone hits him, he snaps, freaking out so hard he sprays his drink everywhere. Sold's dad is still reeling from the shock, wheezing as he blurts, "Are you for real with this?" Sold snaps his eyes over, making sure his old man still got it together, or if he's about to crack in. The dad just stares back, eyes tense, and tells the two of them straight up that what they're asking for is way beyond what he can handle. He launches into a breakdown. Magic stones are ultra-rare treasures you can't even buy on the general market. So yeah, one tiny scrap of any of those things is worth more than the fanciest jewels you could ever buy. Sold looks totally crushed as Frey's words slam back into his head. They're impossible to find, the exact same line that's haunting him now. His dad keeps it straight with him, shuts down the right now dream, then swears he'll hunt down another way to get them everything they need. Night crashes over the city, and suddenly the moonstones become the only thing that matters, because even back when this was all just a game, those things were infamous for being brutally impossible to find. As Sold and Tilty slip into their beds for the night, Sold can't stop thinking about how way easier it was back in the game, where all he had to do was grind for cash. He just lies there, eyes locked on the ceiling, letting the whole weight of it crush him, because trying to make this work in real life is turning into one brutal headache. Tilty flips over and blurts that she's praying he can land those stones, and Sold just glances back with a grin like, "Yeah, me too." Just as they finally settle in, Tilty whispers Sold's name, and he glances over totally puzzled like, "Wait, what's going on when?" When she flashed him a huge grin, thanking him for saving her, and telling him that he looked seriously cool back then. She snickers to herself, tells him good night, still shouting "Big Brother," and that's when things. Steve lay there with a huge blush burning across his face, grinning like he'd just pulled off the perfect move. Staring up at the moon, he thinks, she's such a cute villain, so yeah, I'll do whatever it takes. Deciding on the spot that no matter how brutal the struggle got, he'd push through, anything for the chance to make her smile, so he sets his sights on one mission: get those magic stones delivered by tomorrow, no excuses. The very next morning, Frey shoved a freshly fixed sword into his hands, then made it clear she'd be waiting right where they'd return. Once the goodbyes were finally out of the way, the crew piled into their carriage and kicked off the brutal, long ride back to Soldier Village. But Sold's dad looked wrecked, apologized through the stress, and admitted they didn't even get the new sword today. Sold's dad is still wallowing over that sword, but Sold snaps him out of it. Don't sweat it. He's just relieved they finally have a real plan for what happens next, so his dad leans toward Tilty and asks if she managed to snag even a little piece after all that chaos. She beams back at him and swears she totally did. Meanwhile, he kept convincing himself everything was going perfectly, buying into the idea that even with the chaos, he had set off the exact right chain of events to land that sword at last. Everything feels perfectly calm. Then a colossal explosion tears straight through the carriage wall out of nowhere. Sold's dad blasts the driver away with a furious shout, and Tilty shrieks as terror hits, while Sold lunges for her, and the whole world detonates into fire and smoke. But the carriage lies totally wrecked, still smoldering by the roadside. Then a pair of boots stomps into view. Dagora finally shows up, and he cheers like he just landed the perfect shot. Then he barks for his crew to move in, and the other bandits explode with hype, screaming his name. Bandits surge in on the smoking wreck of the carriage, swords drawn and ready to strike. Dagora plunges into the chaos, yanks Tilty up by the collar, and bursts into laughter as he tells his crew, "We finally snagged the treasure we've been hunting." Staring at the unconscious girl, he snaps that he's heading straight back to Lord Walger's place to deliver her. Dagora fires up the ship, tells his crew he's heading out, and orders the rest of the cleanup to handle the rest, while the bandits yell back like they've already got everything under control. Sold and his dad are sprawled out, slumped and totally wrecked after that blast. With Tilty riding over his shoulder, Dagora strides through the silent forest, and he can't shake the disbelief that this tiny kid is still real. You'd be shocked how much strength he can pull out of nowhere, because once you realize it, you're staring straight at the power of darkness. Later on, a voice booms through a crystal ball, and it tells Walger and Dagora straight up, stealing that exact power is the Titan's ultimate target. Walger cringed low, voice shaking, and asked his master if they were really talking about the power of darkness, and the voice from the ball drops this bomb. It's a power that hits like a tidal wave and scares you half to death. He swears there's one person out there who can tap into a power so unstoppable it could swallow the entire world. Tilty's brother glares with icy fury as he lays it out. This is exactly what it means to be the priestess of darkness. The master glares at Walger and snaps, "You've already missed your chance twice, so quit wasting time," as the noble groans, crushed by shame. Walger looks like he's about to snap, replaying how that girl once killed her mother, and still managed to slip out and run. Then Dagora snaps back to that moment, how she escaped again, even after they unleashed Fenrir on her. The voice booming from the ball snaps Walger into focus. This is his third try, and he and the other two bow down together. He stared straight back at the master through the glass, and the moment the command hit, he ordered them to drag the targets back no matter what it took. And Walger starts panicking, screaming that he'll handle it and that you should leave everything to him. The master leans in and tells him, "If you can pull this off for real, I'll hand you some of that dark power so you can use it too." Walger bursts into laughter, calling it a huge honor, then grins and swears they'll nail them this time for real. Meanwhile, Tilty jolts awake and blurts, "Priestess of Darkness," again and again, totally out of her mind, like she's chasing a memory she can't hold on to. And just like that, confusion hits her hard as she blurts out where she is. Dagora, still holding her tight under his arm, snaps that she'd better shut up if she wants to stay alive. But she won't hear a word. She bursts into tears and screams to uncover what happened to her father and her brother. Dagger just stands there, wearing that nasty smirk like a threat, and lets out a quiet little chuckle. Before he coldly told Tilty that he was the one who wiped out her family. Tilty's face says everything. She's hit with the news so hard she can't even process it, and Dagora grabs her and hauls her through the woods like she's nothing but luggage, roaring that she's too loud. Then she starts screaming at the top of her lungs anyway, and it all cuts out. She can't hold it in. She's sobbing so hard her whole chest shakes, screaming out in pure pain, so So Dagura absolutely loses it, snarling at her that he already told her to shut up. But then he cuts off mid-sentence, frozen in shock, because what he just sees has him completely baffled. Dark energy surges up from the ground like a raging tide, and Dagura starts to lose control, screaming at the top of his lungs to figure out what the hell is happening. As Tilty glares up through tears, she promises she'll turn everyone's world into misery. Dagura's jaw drops as he realizes the power blasting from her is way bigger than he ever expected. Tilty gets totally boxed in by this wild dark energy, and then, right as it closes in, her body starts to shift and change. Dagura feels the darkness pour into him, melting through his veins until his eyes turn pitch black. Power rips through his arms, and his veins bulge like they're about to tear free. He says it feels unreal, then unleashes a massive roar as his muscles blow up to double their size, So he screams that darkness is the greatest thing ever, and Tilty gets ripped straight into a massive whirlpool of black energy. Watching from the side finally clicks for her. Her darkness is the fuel that supercharges her power, and that's exactly why everyone's hunting her. But Dagura just goes full maniac, cackling his head off and blurts, "What the hell is that kid even doing here?" He demands answers about what happened to every man down the hill, but Soul just stays locked in, refusing to look away. Even with his chest heaving, he couldn't stop replaying it. He'd been way too reckless. He didn't see this coming at all, especially not when his dad was already knocked out cold by the wagon. Soul's dad sprawls flat on the ground by the wagon, staring up as regret crushes him. He can't stop thinking about how he totally dropped the ball and wasn't ready for any of this. Even with injuries gnawing at him, he lifts his gaze and snaps. He's done playing nice, and Mercy is done, full stop, especially for the. To these guys, meanwhile, he sold locks and stared into the truth. Timing and the opponent don't matter at all, because if anyone even dares to lay a finger on Tilty, he's going to make them choke on regret, because right now, he's locked in on that threat like nothing else exists. With fury blazing in his eyes, he swore, no mercy, he'd cut every last one of them down. Dagura just bursts into laughter at the kid, standing right in front of that massive swirl of dark energy, and then he declares that Moblib was right, he really is special. Then he flexes those powered-up muscles, stares Soul down, warns him not to underestimate him, and even calls him a little shit. He jams right into Soul's face, grins viciously, and yells that the Priestess of Darkness now belongs to the Titans, and he won't stop now, insisting they'll treat her right and take real good care of her. Problem is, the moment he says that, you just know he's got something twisted brewing. Tilty shrieks as the shadows swallow him whole, and Dagura erupts in a cackle, saying she's basically a human drug that supercharges their power. Saul says nothing, he just grips his sword, sets his jaw, and strides forward like he's done messing around. Dagura snaps out of control, screams at the kid to burn to ash, then slams a massive, dark energy-backed punch. But the selling happens way too fast. Everything blurs as he whips his blade past people like it's nothing, and then before the big guy actually tries to react. But the moment he does, razor-sharp slashes streak through the air and carve him down to size, leaving Dagura totally frozen in his tracks, stuck mid-swing as the air around him turns deadly cold. Soul keeps backing off, starts sliding his sword into its sheath, and Dagura just freezes there, utterly lost, blurting, "Wait, what just happened?" Then panic hits him full force. He blurts out this pathetic little yelp as the ice crawls up his body. He's sobbing and begging for Soul to stop, but the frost barrels forward so fast he can't do a thing. Seconds later, ice swallows him, and he only manages one terrified whisper for help before his eye goes wide with panic. Soul clicks his blade back into place and strides off behind him. Then the ice wolf flash hits, and Dagura is gone, turned into a human popsicle. Soul's cold stare says it all. He won't show a single ounce of mercy to anyone who dares to go after Tilty. Dagura just stands there, motionless as a statue, his face sealed inside a brutal block of ice. He turned his back on the wreckage, sprinting toward a towering ball of swirling dark energy, and then it tore him mid-sentence. He reaches out with both hands, flashes a gentle smile, and tells whoever's inside, "It's all right now." He shouts for Tilty to come to him, right as she peeks from the shadows with teary eyes, trembling toward him. And she snaps apart, sobbing for her big brother as she shatters through the darkness. She rockets ahead and tackles Soul, slamming into a huge hug. Then he snaps her up on the spot. Holding her tight, Soul tells her that no matter how terrified or lost she feels, he's absolutely going to save her, and he vows, right there, that he'll never let her down. Tilty keeps sobbing into his chest as he urges her to stay strong and refuses to let the darkness win. Soul pulls Tilty into his arms, blurts out that he's sorry for everything, then she just hugs him back and as her big brother saves her, she shoots off a grateful look, right before her body finally turns weightless and goes limp in his arms. Sold snaps out, drenched in stress, realizing she's blacked out again, exactly like that last time, same face, same panic. And there he stands, stuck in thought about the Titans, knowing they're still roaming out there, hunting that dark power like prey. Just then voices burst from the woods, bragging that he dropped Dagora in a single hit. So, surprises hit the room hard when a squad of armored knights barges in and blares that they've been sent from House Hartman. The lead knight declares they've come to take the Sold back, but the moment he hears that, rage takes over. He snaps and fires back. What the hell is? Everything's finally in motion. Then the story slams to a massive mansion, drenched in moonlight. It turns out House Hartman is one of the two massive noble families ruling the whole town of Gus. The knights paraded the kid forward and called him Lord Sold, the Ranger family's son, while the whole crowd stared in silence. The crew finally rolls up to the Hartman estate, and a man stationed behind a desk greets him with a warm, "You're here at last," like he's been waiting forever, telling him it's a real pleasure to finally meet him, and he snaps his name into the air. Reich Hartman, the boss of the entire family, standing there, staring at the beds where Sold's dad and sister lie resting. He tells them he already had a doctor come through to treat them. He tells Sold that he can finally breathe easy now that they're safe. Then the kid turns and looks at Tilty. He snaps to the truth. Right now, relaxing is the one thing he can't even imagine, and the idea feels downright impossible. That's why he's so on edge, straight up. Staring at Reich, he suddenly clicks. This isn't just some random dude. It's the kind of character you recognize from the Noblesse Fantasia game, so yeah, he's tangled up with one of the original story's main characters, and that's a gigantic disaster. Because inside the world of the game, Reich is the one exact guy Destin needs. He's stepping up to face Tilty head-on and crush the villain. Sold slumped on the couch, totally stressed out, because he knows Reich and his family were never supposed to clash as enemies yet, not until way later in the game, so this timing feels completely wrong. And even after he thanks Reich for pulling them out, he can't shake the sinking feeling that something far darker is brewing behind the scenes. He suddenly spirals back to those three knights in the forest, swearing they were there to snag him, and the question starts gnawing at him as he wonders. Why do they always pop up at the exact perfect second to swoop in and save the day? It feels way too convenient. Then he glances at Reich, there, settled in place, while his soldiers stand guard, and right then it hits. This is the story's biggest turning point. Sold remembers from the game that Reich is a total genius, always plotting 3 moves ahead and making every step count, because he sees the whole battlefield before anyone else even does. And he's dead sure this guy would never play hero. He doesn't lift a finger out of kindness, not for a second. The moment he saves Tilty's life, it slams into him. He didn't just fix a moment, he tore through her fate and forged an all-new timeline where Tilty's family dodges the worst and stays alive, so Reich doesn't clash with her at the academy later. He ends up meeting her as a kid instead. Staring at Reich's calm face, Sold couldn't shake the feeling. What's this master tactician really cooking next? Reich leans in and tells him, "My family's been shadowing Dagora, the same dude you just wiped out," and it totally shocks the kid, until Reich leans in and drops the truth. Dagora isn't just a name, she's the boss of the town's criminal underworld. This guy's been tangled up in all kinds of brutal business, smuggling goods, trafficking people, the whole dark package. And even though Reich has dragged him into the spotlight over and over in the past, every time he moves, his massive backing crushes the charges before they can even stick. Poof, gone. When Sold fires back asking what he means by backing, Reich locks eyes with him, shoots a hard, serious look, and just confirms that. Turns out the brains behind it all are Walger Debihip, the noble family's boss, running the town side by side with the Hartmans. Hearing that name jolts my soul straight back to when Walger's thugs came crashing in, demanding a custom sword with nothing but brutal force. And back in those days, that noble didn't just talk. He shoved threats at Frey to yank her father's hand back into submission, leading Reich to conclude that the guy is nothing but a massive villain, siphoning the townspeople like tools just to line his own pockets and get filthy rich. Reich lifts his gaze and admits it. Sure, everything looks bleak, but there's still no solid proof tying the noble to Dagora's gang, which snaps one of his knights right out of control, yelling that the whole town already knows that guy is a total piece of shit. Another knight snaps at him to shut up, and Reich fires back that the truth means nothing if nobody can change a damn thing. Sold finally sold the side stairs off, and once they started to move, the town's corruption showed its true depth. He locks eyes with him, right to the core, and demands to know if this is it. if his real plan is finally going to knock Walger down for good. Reich doesn't say a word at first. He just drills the kid with a sharp, intense stare through his glasses as his, while his knights just stood there in the back, totally blindsided by the kid's straight-up questions. Sold keeps pushing, saying Reich was probably just sitting back, watching Dagora the whole time, until he finally had the proof to bury that noble. And when Reich clocks just how much the kid has figured out, a small smile creeps onto his face. He tells Sold he's honestly stunned, because the kid is dead on about every single thing. Reich tells us that on paper, the Hartman and Devichip families are meant to run this town side by side in perfect peace, but then he pauses and everything flips. But he finally admits it. Every bit of it is just theater, and the real truth is brutal. Both families are biding their time, hunting for the perfect opening to smash the other. Reich talks about how his family has been growing right beside Gus from day one. While his knights stand there, brimming with pride, he declares that the real treasure of his house isn't gold, it's the people living right here. So he lays it out plain. If they want to protect everyone, they can't let Walger, of all people, beat them. Sold slumps there with his tea, utterly stunned, because this guy, Reich, is throwing surprise after surprise in his face. The kid remembers how, in the original game, Reich always came off as pure sarcasm and cold cynicism. And he even remembers Reich preaching to everyone, shows zero mercy to any enemy of the Hartman house. Soldier stared at him, caught between wonder and doubt. Was that guy just insanely passionate underneath, or was something else going on? And if all he's been doing this whole time is pushing himself to the limit, just to nail his duty as the young lord? Reich grabs Sold and demands to know if the guy he beat Dagora down actually went after his sister. Sold just nods and says, "Yeah, that's exactly what happened." And he drops that Dagora swears his sister somehow belongs to a group called the Titan. Reich says he knew it all along, and that line instantly freaks out his knights. He's left with his left wondering what he meant, right? While the Titans get unmasked as this gigantic, shadowy syndicate, silently steering the whole world from the underground like they own it. Nobody knows when they first showed up, or who's really calling the shots. All anyone can tell is they're a ruthless crew shrouded in total mystery. Reich's face goes stone cold, and he straight up admits that deep down, he'd already felt Walger was tangled up with those people. He leans in and tells you Walger's got a plan. He's trying to use Soul's sister for something, and he won't say what. Handing her over would shoot Walger up the ranks and lock him in even tighter with the organization. If that happens, the town's corruption will snowball into a violent nightmare, and everyone gets caught in the chaos, because nobody will be safe. Reich just stands there and vows he won't let it happen under any circumstances, so we have to move fast and stop him before it's too late. Reich stands by the window with his back to the room, telling Saul he's got a real proposal brewing for him. And Saul. When Sold repeats the word back, he freezes with a shocked look, then it hits him. This offer is the whole reason they're here. Reich reached out to them in the first place, so he stared him down and demanded to know what's really going on. The memory snaps into a full-blown nightmare. Bandits storm the town, torch every street, and leave nothing but chaos and smoke behind. Inside a house, Tilty's mom yanks her toward the door. Run, while she stays behind, buying them seconds to breathe. She snaps that something terrifying is crawling in the dark, and it's not just random danger. They're coming for her specifically, but she wipes Tilty's face with her fingertips and whispers, "You're okay," even while that same darkness is the thing tearing her apart. She swears that one day, a light will finally come and erase every last shred of that darkness for good. So, even though tears pour down her face and she cries for her mom, she forces herself to keep moving forward, no matter how brutal it gets. Tilty jolts awake in bed, tears streaming down her face, and she blurts out her mother's name from the shock of that intense dream. Tilty finally blinked awake, but the moment her eyes opened, confusion hit her like a wave. "Where am I?" the nurse answered, saying she's up now and that they're staying at the Hartman estate. Tilty locks eyes with her dad in the next bed and screams for him, but the nurse snaps, "Stay calm." Tilty pushes back, saying if she keeps quiet and gets some rest, everything will turn out okay. She just has to believe it. Moonlight spills over the massive house as Tilty leans in and asks where her brother disappeared to, and the nurse just sighs, says he's swamped right now, probably hashing everything out with Lord Rake, the one running this whole place. Someone lunges a hard step down the hall like he dropped out of thin air the exact moment when she needed him the most, and no matter what chaos hit, he was right there in front of her. And Tilty snaps to it. Just like her mom promised, he's really there, right in front of her, ready to protect her. She bursts into the office, yanks the doors wide, and shouts for her big brother, only to find him standing there, and in that moment, she realizes he's the light that saved her. But the second she hears Sol tell the Lord he wants the Hartman family to take her in and protect her, her world snaps. Tilty freezes on the spot, unable to move. She's totally thrown by the thought of being left behind. Tears spill from her eyes as she stares at him and blurts, "What are you even talking about?" He glances at her and flat out tells her timing for showing up was straight up perfect. Sol jerked his head up, stunned to see Tiltil standing in the doorway, and he blurted out her name. Like stays calm at his desk, tells Tilty her dad is resting, and admits he's been reworking the whole situation with Sol. He wastes no time warning Tilty point-blank that Walger, the town's marquis, has her specifically in its sights. He straightened his glasses and admitted it's real, but he still can't crack why that guy is hunting her. But since Walger's a top-shelf noble, he'd have no problem pinning fake crimes on her just to bend the world his way. It's even worse than they feared. If Walger charges after her, he could wipe out the entire Ranger village. Tilty and Sol just stood there, frozen in total silence, as the danger finally crashed down on them. Like drops the truth, the Hartman family isn't inviting her for fun. They're doing it because this is the only way to keep her safe from him. He locks eyes with her and makes it crystal clear he's not doing this just to be nice, because this deal isn't really for her alone. It's a shield to keep everyone she calls home from getting hit in the crossfire. Tilty is absolutely shell-shocked by the news, and he can barely squeeze out a single word. Tears spill from her eyes as she snaps her gaze to Sold, crying out for her big brother, because she's completely lost and doesn't know what else to do. Saldo digs in, refuses to budge, and finally snaps into focus, like he's seeing the real game he's been thrown into. He points out that sure, the offer asterisk looks asterisk like help, but like always, it's just a cover for something way bigger that he's aiming for. So he ends up with the upper hand, sitting in a spot more powerful than Walger. They keep Tilty tucked under the Hartman roof, because that's the only way to block the one person Walger is clawing to get his hands on. And honestly, for a guy like Walger, getting trapped in a place like this is about as annoying as it gets. Because Walger is determined to get Tilty back safe and sound, so his hands are pretty much stuck where they are. So he can't afford a single sloppy move or a brawl with the Hartmans, because one mistake could cost him everything. Sold finally clocks it. Lake is the one calling every shot, firing off aggression at full power, while Walger is stuck there, getting hit with it and doing nothing. So Old turns and realizes the guy doesn't see Tilty as anything, just a bargaining chip. Ketch is on that Sold, eyes locked on him, and he realizes he can't drop his guard around that kid for even a second. Tilty just freezes there, totally overwhelmed, while the two of them lay out her future and as the seconds tick by, Sold starts crunching numbers in his head, locking in on the only thing that matters, keeping her safe. He's stuck on one burning question: should he really walk away, make her hold the feelings, and finally cut ties to go his own way? Or he could just try to shield her with his own power, but he decides the smarter move is taking the deal. He clenches his fist, spiraling over one crushing question: which path truly makes her happy, and whether he's the one brave enough to take it. Finally, Sold drops his head, puts on a fake understanding, and asks him to promise, take good care of his sister. Tilty's eyes brim with tears as she calls out to him, begging, "Why is this happening, and why are you leaving me behind?" Sol says nothing, just stares at the ground, face hidden from the world as he wrestles with the choice. Like a promise that the Hartman family will defend Tilty with everything they've got, Serldet bows his head, whispers thank you, but before they lock anything in, he lays down one condition. With a massive grin, Sold barges in like a boss and asks to hire him on the spot, leaving Tilty staring beside him, stunned out of her mind. He just stares right back, eyes wide, completely blown away by the kid's audacious request. Even the knights tucked in the back can't mask their shock. He sits there, staring at the truth, and clings to the promise he swore to himself, because he knows only he can step up and actually protect her. And Tilty finally snaps into a massive, glowing smile as she looks at him. Sol leans in and fires her a confident wink, like he's got everything perfectly under control. Like he freezes for a beat, just staring at the way the two of them are going at it, until he fucking. Lee finally flashes a smirk and fires off the same idea, soldiering on just to protect his sister, and somehow he manages to sound genuinely impressed. Like says he's totally in, but he needs to clear the whole plan with someone else before anything goes down. Until it hits him, she's actually his younger sister. Sold's thrown for a loop when he learns a sister is in the mix, but Tilty's mind is snagged on the word discuss, like it's the only thing that matters. Like asks if they're cool with that, and Sold just blurts, yeah, but he can't stop wondering why the head of the house isn't the one making the call. Like he tells them, stay right here and chill at the mansion until dad's good as new, and then. And later that night, the sharp thud of boots hits the floor, like something about to go down. He barges into a bedroom and shouts for a girl named Saluria, who's sitting on a bed packed with stuffed animals, and still glued to her book, she fires a question at her brother. Did he finally track down the girl he's been hunting? Like flashes a smirk, tells her, yep, I did, and makes it clear he's got her locked down safely, exactly like she promised he would. He tells her weird clairvoyance power nailed it, straight up caught her exactly where it promised. Saluria sits still on her bed, quiet as a secret, while everyone acts like she's holding the one key that could decide the Hartman family's whole future. And she tells him that finding Tilty is great news, but then she hits him with it. There's something else he still has to deal with. He tells you about a noble kid with Tilty, who's actually stepping up and offering to work for their family, even. So now everyone's wondering, did Saluria see him in her visions too? But she shuts it down fast, saying she has zero clue who that kid even is. Through her clairvoyance, she digs deeper, and in the future she sees that boy-like soul isn't there at all. Like clocking a red flag, decides he'll just shut the kid down until With the moon hanging over the mansion like a spotlight, Saluria yanked her brother's attention and told him to wait just a second because she's convinced that kid's hiding something dark and off, and it doesn't feel normal at all. She says Sold is the first person she's ever met whose power can't stop her abilities, because for the first time, her powers flat out fail to see him, and she's dead sure there's no way he just barged into their house out of nowhere, without some huge reason behind it. Sold just stands there with a grin, wondering if Saluria's right, is he truly some kind of special existence? But Saluria's still locked on him, hunting for signs that he'll either lift her family to glory, or torch everything for good, so she decides she'll be the one to decide his fate, and meanwhile out in the middle of nowhere, and before anyone could even breathe, a dark rift ripped open through the air, too damn early for celebration, because that creepy dark hole just sits there in the woods, leaking out pure, soul-chilling bad vibes. Back at the house, Sold finally drops into his brand new life, now training as a guard apprentice for the Hartman family. And he's buzzing with excitement. Tilty just officially moved into the mansion, and now she's living with them for good. He admits his dad was totally blindsided by the chaos, but he still threw them his blessing to stay. Garland stands there, arms crossed tight, and tells the kid, "Don't worry, I'll explain everything to your mom." Saul shoots him a grateful look for always having their backs, so Garland leans in and tells him, country nobles like them treat it like a blessing to get close to the high-ranking families, and that's only the start. He tells Sold this is a massive chance for both of them. Then the kid just sits there, totally baffled, wondering what kind of opportunity his dad even means. Sold blurts out the idea of hunting a magic stone, and the moment he says it, Garland gets hit so hard he's completely blindsided. Turns out those things never hit the open market at all, and now, being linked to a marquis's house might be their only shot at finally getting one. Sold nods like he's catching every beat as it finally clicks, because if they can just get their hands on that magic stone, they can finally forge a real sword for Frey. He needs a blade built for Magin-style swordsmanship, strong enough to actually take the hit when that power finally lands. If he can sell it and pull that off, he's sure he can level up to a power way beyond what he's got right now. Garland bows as he's about to step out, and he tells Lord Rake, "Don't worry, I'm leaving these two kids in your hands." Rake tells Garland, "Don't worry, have a safe trip back," and the kids wave from the pavement as they leave. He tore himself away from Sold, locking in on his true mission, being Tilty's personal bodyguard, no distractions. He knows Waldger is still gunning for her, so she can't really step outside, but as long as she stays hidden, she's basically free to do whatever she wants. Lately, life in the mansion's been running silky smooth, starting with those insane meals they get served every single day, and even the hours they grind in the library, slamming through every book. Tilty finally steals some time for herself, tossing around with the dogs outside while Sold stands guard. Then Sold realizes he actually pulled through the entire week with zero big problems, and just when he thinks it's over, he spots Saluria crouched behind the walls, glaring at them with the same cold stare she's been using for days. For a whole week, he's had his eyes locked on her every single day, and now he's finally starting to see the real her, not just the face she shows. Turns out she's Saluria Hartman, the same sister character from that Immortal-like game he can't stop remembering. Seeing her just standing there, Sold starts buzzing with the question, should he be the one to finally step up and talk to her? Tilty slams into action, calling out the moment she spots Saluria peeking around the corner. Tilty locks eyes with her and blurts out, "So tell me, why are you always lurking in the shadows, watching me?" Saluria just stands there, stone still, staring at Tilty with a blank, empty gaze, like she's staring right through her. Suddenly, a strange spiral flickers in Saluria's eye, and she jolts like she's just uncovered something massive. Out of nowhere, Saluria rockets forward, wraps her arms around Tilty in an instant, and leaves Sold standing behind them, utterly stunned and clueless. Saluria snaps that Tilty needs to come to her room right this second, and Tilty's so stunned she can't even make sense of what's happening. Saluria blurts, "We need to talk," and yanks Tilty off, while Sol scrambles in, trying to cut through the chaos and demand, "Wait, what's going on?" He steps in, tells Searled that there's nothing to fear, and then Searled shifts his focus straight to him. Like he's apologizing for how selfish his sister's being and begging Sol to just put up with it for a little while. He tells Sold that once Saluria hits this state, there's no way to stop her, so Sold can't help but wonder what he really means. Outside the mansion, everything's calm. Dogs trot through the grass like it's their daily routine, just running wild and carefree. As they pour the tea, Starts breaks the silence and lays out Saluria's power, because it's not just a gift for him, it's a blessing for the entire Hartman family. Sold kept wondering about this blessing, until the moment he explained it, over and over, that Saluria's power had saved him again and again, and he realized he'd have to ask her first before he ever hired Sold. Light calls his sister their guiding light for the whole family, and right there, it all finally snaps into place for Sold, as he remembers exactly who Saluria is from the game. He shuts his eyes and remembers how she'd guide him every time he got lost. Then he drifts back to that old legend, the one about the winds steering the way through the unknown. Sol gritted her teeth, trying to reconstruct it all, because her power is meant to reveal the exact route people must follow. It's an insanely rare gift, like handing her the power to peek into the future. Sold finally realizes she's just like her sister, so she pushes for more details, but then Zipsy snaps it shut, apologizes, and swears her power is a total family secret. Like just blows it off with, "My power is special," and that basically seals it. She's got the clairvoyance he remembers from the game, no doubt about it. He can't stop wondering what she's seeing right now with those eyes of hers. Right nearby, a tray piled with cupcakes and sandwiches waits like a prize, while a massive mountain of stuffed animals looms all around it. And the girls just kick back in a room packed with plushies, while Saluria and Tilty slip off for their own cozy private tea party, far from the guys. Tilty hangs out looking a bit shaky, then carefully fires a question at Saluria. But Saluria just stares back with those dead, blank eyes and orders Tilty to ditch the formal talk, because honorifics are nothing but a total headache. Tilty demands to know why they dragged her into this room, and Saluria shrugs. She saw the two of them chatting, so she hauled Tilty over here too. Saluria says she just trusts what she sees, because it's never wrong, and Tilty is left standing there, totally wrecked, wondering what seeing even means. Saluria suddenly locks eyes with you as she explains, voice sharp. Every single thing she's doing is for the brother-like one she'd die to protect. The two of them just sit there surrounded by stuffed animals, stealing a quiet moment together. Saluria leans in and asks if Tilty's with her, and Tilty's like, "Wait, do you mean we're officially friends now?" Saluria cracks into a massive, real smile and blurts out just how deeply she loves her big brother, like it's bursting out of her chest, which Tilty keeps glancing off to the side, and with a shaky whisper she admits it. She's just as in love with her own brother's soul, but then her. A sad little expression creeps across her face as she admits that all she's ever done is drag him into one mess after another. Tilty meets her eyes and tells her she wants to help her own big brother too, just like Saluria helps hers. Saluria just stares right back, calm, sharp, and crystal clear in a way she hasn't shown before. So Luria tells Tilty she's got nothing to fear. If she still wants it badly enough, she can make it real, and that leaves Tilty questioning whether this is really all about her feelings. Tilty blurted out the same wish for one single second, and that's when her magic finally jolted awake. She wasn't wishing for anything else. She was begging for the power to save her brother, while the two girls sat there together. Saluria suddenly slips back to her childhood, always staring off into space, and through it all, her big brother-like figure never left her side, standing there. And since their parents were always swallowed up by work, he stepped in to care for her, and he treated her with nothing but pure kindness. Even after their parents were wiped out in that brutal accident, he grabbed her close, clung to her like lifeline, and vowed, no matter what, he'd keep her safe in their home. Saluria felt pure relief to have him there, but the moment the joy hit, she refused to stop, she had to find a way to help him too, and then the instant that wish left her lips, her special power finally roared to life. These wild visions started blasting into her head out of nowhere, over and over again, just scattered hints about the future started leaking out, especially anything tied to the Hartman family. In one of those visions, straight up saved them, because a massive rock came crashing down exactly where they were standing. Turns out every single flash of her future wasn't random at all. It was the only thing keeping her brother safe. But Siluria admits she has zero clue when her clairvoyance will snap on, or what it'll actually throw into her vision. The only thing she's certain of is this: every face, every moment, every twist she sees somehow ends up saving her brother in the end. That's why she acted back then, hunched in her room, stuffed animals everywhere, fully ready to make her move. She shoved like toward the forest south of Gust, yelling that a girl's life was on the line against a mohawk-wearing menace, and the moment like heard the name Dagora, he knew exactly who it was. In her vision, nothing mattered, only the little girl and that mohawk-wearing man. But when that moment finally hit, Sold was right there, so close it flipped the whole story upside down. Siluria lounges in her room, ringed by toys, and tells Tilty she can actually see a soul's shape. But Tilty only watches in silence, acting like she's the one person who can truly decide what happens to her brother. Like stands alone, staring at the glowing lights, unsure if these new faces are real friends or just strangers pretending. Just another pack of problems he's gotta crush. Then the next morning, the sun spills over the Hartman estate, and as Sold and Tilty stride through the halls, Tilty suddenly blurts that Siluria hasn't shown up, not yet. She's totally thrown off. Siluria just told her she can't see Soul at all with her powers. Sold ground to a halt, staring at her own power, especially that clairvoyance and it. Then it finally hits him. Somehow, Siluria can't see what's waiting for him in his future. Just as he's still trying to process it, a guard suddenly erupts into shouts for the princess, and both kids practically leap out of their skin. Sold asks what's going on, and the guard freaks out, screaming that Lady Siluria is totally gone. One of the older guards is struck pure panic, blaring that every single vassal is out there right now, tearing through the world to find the princess. Tilty shouted for her brother as Sold stepped in, promising the two of them would jump in and help with the search too. Out on the estate grounds, guards are sprinting in every direction and screaming at the top of their lungs as the hunt for Siluria turns up the heat. But right on the roof's razor-thin edge, Siluria stands alone, staring at the future she's been seeing, and it's eating her thoughts alive because it has always steered her onto the right path, despite how badly she's freaking out about what comes next. She edges her boot toward the ledge, absolutely sure this is the exact moment fate picked for her, right as the moment cuts off mid. Standing on the mansion's highest peak, she stares out over the clouds as the wind howls louder and louder. She flings herself off the edge with her arms wide, psyching herself up to do whatever it takes. As she drops, she shuts her eyes and lets it take her, calm as anything, like the fall doesn't even scare her, right up until. Then Soul shows up out of nowhere on the roof, grabs her hand mid-drop, and slams the brakes on her fall before everything turns ugly. Soul screams Siluria's name as he yanks her in a panic, shouting, "What are you doing?" Siluria glances back at him with this total blank stare, like she's frozen, because she absolutely can't figure out why he's even standing there. She can't stop replaying that vision, seeing herself plunge through the sky, utterly alone, thinking about it because, in the future she saw, Sold wasn't anywhere in sight to help her, so she rushed to tell him she'd just been chasing her vision. Leaves him staring like he's completely clueless. Then she blurts out that in every future she's ever seen, in every single timeline, the only way to save her brother was to take that jump, so Sold is left completely frozen, barely able to blurt the word from down there, staring at the guard and scrambling to get it out, shouting that it's Sold, just to make him look out because he's still dangling off the edge, and Sold snaps at her, saying if anything happens to her, he'd be crushed and totally devastated. They're up on the roof together, and Solia's frustration practically spits in the air, while Siluria just blanks out, staring into nothing. But she doubles down, refusing to back off. She's dead set on doing whatever it takes to make sure the right future finally takes shape. Perched on the high rooftop, Saul blares out at the top of her lungs, demanding to know what Saul actually means by a right future. He keeps pressing forward, grilling her like, "Do you honestly believe that for a so-called destined path, we're supposed to?" He's supposed to just sit there and do nothing while everyone he loves tumbles into despair or gets hit by tragedy. Siluria says nothing. She just stands there, tears pouring down her face as Sold snaps that he won't accept a single thing like that, no matter what. He clamps his hand around hers and tells her the future isn't locked in, It's something you forge right there in the moment. Siluria's eyes bulge with sheer disbelief, completely stunned by everything he just said, because everything finally clicks for Sold, and the second it does, he understands why she could never see his future in her visions. It's because he's a reincarnator who never fit into this world's original script, and that alone throws everything off. And yeah, that original Soldner Ranger was basically doomed to die in game, but here he is, standing in front of you, alive and kicking. Sold is perched on the roof's edge, screaming that he'll forge his own future, then snaps into it and realizes there's no script laid out for him anymore. And then boom, he finally clocks them, shouts for Siluria, and she spins around to call back to her big brother. He barrels over, yanks her into a crushing hug, and looks like the whole world just stopped, pure relief flooding his face because she's safe and okay. Peeks down at her and snaps that she's a fool for being reckless, but you can tell, he's really freaking out because he cares. Siluria doesn't say a word. She just melts into his arms, and hot tears keep streaming down her face. She finally finds her voice and blurts out to her brother that she's sorry for everything that went down. He swings his focus to the kid and tells Sol he owes him nothing but his sincere thanks. He admits he actually overheard the whole conversation that was going on between them earlier with Siluria. Nods right with him, insisting the future isn't something you wait for, it's something you forge right now. He decides to go all in right now, offering an official spot to serve the Hartman family, not as some lowly apprentice anymore. So Old just stared up with pure excitement blazing across his face as he read. Reaches out to grab Like's hand, tells him, "Just call me from now on," and Sold breaks into a happy agreement as Siluria watches them click instantly. He shoots Sold a look packed with real respect, then flat out declares that Sold is the savior of his sister, and of the whole house. Sold just stands there, flashing a proud grin and soaking up every second of it, until one of the knights comes sprinting in, screaming for the young master, tells him to calm down, because Siluria is safe, and the poor guy finally lets out a breath of relief once he knows she's okay. But the night's far from over. He drops another bombshell. He reports that a rift has suddenly ripped open in the southern forest. Lycan snapped up both freeze, then erupted in total shock as the news hit, straight from his mouth to the ceiling. The whole vibe flips the second the light turns razor bright, like it's screaming, "Your wait is over. The day is finally here." Sold's panic surges. He blurts out, "Is this really a rift?" And the whole time, he can't shake the feeling that this is exactly what happened in the game. Confirms everything's gone off the rails, because that Demon Realm portal just ripped open. The night practically screams as the sky tears open. An outbreak is about to explode from the magic dimension, because a rift is. Sold recognizes it at once. He freezes, stares straight at the split in the sky, and knows this is the massive opening he's been waiting to take. He finally steels himself to make his move, remembering Frey's warning. This magic dimension is a world of beasts and raw, pure energy, and it's about to collide with him. It's the only place on Earth where magic ore can grow thick enough to trap any asterisk spell, because that's where those magic stones are born. He sells himself short because he knows he has to get his hands on the magic stone sword, no matter what, if he wants to have the kind of power that actually saves lives, because to him, a sword is the only thing that can protect the people he loves. And he'll do whatever it takes to carve out a brighter future for Tilty. Then he stares back at the rift, and that gigantic doorway into the magic dimension gapes in the world like a fresh wound, and yeah, it's a totally different realm explodes with mana, pure magical power in every breath, powering the whole world as it starts to. A one-of-a-kind, ruthless ecosystem, where the usual human rules don't even stand a chance. In this world, every wild beast and every vicious plant drinks mana like it's life itself, fully nourished, fully powered, and ready to wreck something. Turns out, just a moderate hit of mana doesn't harm you. It simply gets converted into usable magical power, and in normal doses, it barely affects humans at all. But once mana claws past what his body can handle, brutal dizziness and nausea slam in hard, so it only. And then, right in the absolute worst-case scenario, so much mana floods in that it can actually turn fatal. The reports say, this magic dimension is packed with a mono concentration that's absolutely through the roof. To stop anyone from getting mana poisoning, he slams the decision down. Only himself and the top-tier elites with massive mana get to go. He whips around to his team and fires off, Zweig, Audrey ready to move, and they yell back, "We're set." Zweig flashes a huge grin at the young master, swearing she's got his back, and then Audrey strides up with unwavering loyalty, swearing his entire life belongs to House Hartman. Finally, hands ain'ts the keys and assures him the estate is in safe hands, and the commander lines in, telling him he doesn't have to worry about a single thing. Sold scans the area stats, clocking the magic power readings, then studies how that magic might ignite in the concentration. It's exactly like the game. The dungeon demands level 20 just to walk through the door, and the pressure is so brutal that anyone who hasn't trained for 2 straight weeks can't even enter. So that's when Soul finally clicks. This high concentration stuff isn't just a detail, it's a game changer. And he starts asking himself if this place is about to go absolutely feral and deadly. And Wright basically tells him, no way you're hauling a kid into a magic dimension like this. But Sold snaps, convinced he's being ditched, only to realize something's coming next. But then stops dead in his tracks and blurts. That's only what he'd normally say to a kid, and the guy who's sold. He's just standing there, totally frozen, completely confused. So yeah, he glances at his team and says this kid isn't like the rest at all. So he scans the group, hunting for some backup. Zweig bursts in on the spot, hammers home how that kid dropped Daggero with one brutal hit. Adria nods hard, shouting that ice swordsmanship unleashed pure, staggering power, and then Even Ein jumps in, insisting that even if the kid can't wield magic himself, that magic sword is about to become a massive game changer for the whole team. Admits it's still hard to believe, but he can't brush off the truth. His 3 top elites are all backing him loudly. He locks eyes with them and warns it's a dangerous place, then flips the question, still lend me your strength even if it's risky. Sold goes all in, yells, yes, and instantly agrees to jump in and help take down that dungeon raid. He's betting everything on one magic stone slotting in right there, because if he pulls it off, he'll finally forge a sword that won't snap the moment he unleashes his full power. But right before they step out, he whips around to Tilty, calls her name, and you can see real worry sitting in his face as he's about to leave her behind. She just glances back at him, rocking a calm, sweet smile like she knows exactly what he's about to feel. Tiltilt tells him not to worry about her while he's gone, and it absolutely shocks him to his core. She says Saluria and the others will be there to shield her. Then Saluria just flashes a peace sign. Sold yanks Tilty into a tight hug and vows he won't fail her, not when he's got a promise hanging over his head. With the whole squad staring, Tilty leaned in and told him she'd use his time away to get stronger herself. Then she just started talking. And the two of them just freeze for a beat, grinning like they fully trust each other. At last, Tilty and Saluria wave the whole crew goodbye as they charge off toward the magic dimension. The squad's buzzing with adrenaline. Sold and the knights are charging out of there, ready to go. A rattling horse carriage tears out of Gust, vanishing from the city lights as it barrels south toward the forest. As the whole crew pushes deeper into a jungle-thick forest, the trail turns nasty fast. While they're walking, Sold keeps scanning the area and blurts out, asking if stuff like this happens all the time, But he admits it's his first time too, and he basically spills that the demon dimension is just a total roll of the dice, one random disaster after another. He swears these rifts just burst out by sheer accident, and once they start, they only keep roaring louder and bigger until it's out of control. Once they crack those holes open, terrifying magical beasts start flooding out like a nightmare breaking loose. If they don't stop this right now, the whole area is about to get wrecked, and everyone who lives there is going to pay for it. So they've got no choice. If they don't slam that rift shut right now, everything's gonna spiral out of control fast. Points out that this rift blasted into existence right at the heart of his family's territory. Light keeps talking as they move, warning that if this rift ruins everything, his family will be the ones to pay the price. And since the opposition won't just shrug that off, Sold's so are you talking about the Waltzer, DVA, who's that? Confirms it, Walger is going to try to torch the Hartman name for bringing danger to this town, mostly so he could brag that they're no longer fit to run the city of Gust. As they pass the waterfall, blurts out that these demon dimensions are absolute hell. Still, they've got one bright spot, and that's the wild stash of rare resources they can dig up from inside. He's preaching about rare special plants, monster materials, and hidden ores that the human world can't even touch. It's so insanely profitable that some nobles are literally praying for these rifts to rip open because they want to cash in big. But he insists that the money only matters if you're strong enough to actually wipe the place clean. Right as the guards spot them, they roar that they've been waiting again. Then they shove ahead and lead the way. The crew finally reaches the colossal rift, an ugly, jagged tear ripping through the sky, signaling the entrance to the demon dimension. Sold starts scanning the area, and a weird gut feeling hits him. He asks, "Is this really what I think it is?" And one of the knights leans in, tells him he's spot on. It's the very spot where Sold just fought and smashed Dodra not long ago. The air around the rift feels thick and lethal, like a giant mouth hanging open, ready to chomp them in one bite. Sold can't shake this nagging gut feeling that something's off, and he's left wondering if that rift popping open right here is more than just a lucky coincidence. And then she drops a shocking detail. Reports say Dagora's frozen body vanished right from this exact spot. Mobrib confirms it. By the time any soldier showed up to check, the body had vanished, and that insane rift had swallowed the scene. Zweig tries to keep the vibes calm, telling everyone not to worry because Dagora is definitely dead, and then she grabs Saul and demands he back her up. Sold swears they all witnessed it, but Walger was probably already slipping someone in to snatch the body, because he had to erase the evidence. Even with that mystery still hanging in the air, everyone clenches up, and Light finally slams the call, telling the crew to kick the door in and go inside. Like a battle cry finally screaming, time to crush the demon dimension, and the whole crew erupts in a thunderous cheer as they. Siluria dives straight into the rift, and back at the mansion, she interrogates Tilty about that dark power she'd hinted at, and Tilty says. She says that ever since she was a kid, her magic would flip out any time she hit a rough patch, and her mom swore it was the power of darkness, the kind. Honestly, that's downright terrifying. Tilty even admits she can't control it, and once it flares up, she just blacks out. Taking over, she quickly looks away and blurts that she's sure her weird power only brings bad luck to everyone she actually cares about. Siluria clocks her for a heartbeat, then leans in and tells her that that power isn't evil by itself. People are the ones who choose whether it gets used for good or destruction. And she finally gets it, because her own clairvoyance used to scare her to death back in the day too. Turns out, Like was the one who told her that when she was little, helping her cope with the fact that she was different, and she ends it by saying, any power turns evil if you're a jerk, but wield it the right way, and it can bring real joy to people. Siluria ends her lesson by telling Tilty that when she uses her power the right way, that's what lights up real happiness, and then she stops. And Tilty takes that straight to her heart, asks if it's really that simple, then grins, like she's finally clicked and understands it for real. She flashes a quick wink at Luria and says thanks, swearing she won't let her powers spook her anymore. With her dark magic blazing, she vows to make everyone smile, and then she declares she's kicking off a brand new special training session immediately. Next up is the fight. One bizarre war cry, all about being happy, erupts from the chaos, and the crew slams into plant monsters like they've got something to prove. Soul barges straight into the chaos, screams at the top of his lungs, and as he whips his blade in a huge, blazing arc, mowing down every monster in its path. They never even get a breath in. His blade rips through them with a violent slash, and all they can do is shriek as they get torn apart. Like steps back, lets it all play out, and thinks Soul's skills are on a whole other level. And he realizes if Soul can't tap into magic, then every ounce of his power had to go into one thing, becoming an absolute sword master. Like keeps staring at the souled guy, wondering how many hours he must have bled on training drills with that blade to get that terrifyingly good. But just as he's finally getting his breath, a winged monster rockets out of the sky with a brutal screech, and it catches him completely off guard. Zweig snaps into action right away, shouts the Aqua Lance, and blasts out a massive wave of water. She crashes straight into the monster, blasting it so hard it screams as it gets hurled back. Then she slides in to cover like a shield. She yells at Audrey to back her up, and he screams back, poised to slam the hammer down. Audrey unleashes his rock hammer, smashing the ground so viciously that jagged stone spikes erupt from the earth, ripped straight through the last monsters, cutting them down as they choked out one final pathetic cry. For 1/10 second, everything goes dead silent as the dust and smoke from the magic blast starts to drift away. Audrey rushes over to Like, checking if he's okay, and when Like insists he's fine, Audrey lets out a breath, saying the whole area finally looks clear. Then out of nowhere, he starts groaning, clutching his head like it's on fire. Everyone realizes something is seriously wrong. Sold and the Knights completely lose it as Like suddenly doubles over, screaming his name the instant he slams onto the ground. They finally get him dosed with medicine, and the guy just slumps there, crumbling with shame, apologizing like a broken leader, begging forgiveness for failing at even a tiny case of magic sickness. Sold stays right beside him and blurts out, "Why are you even trying to reach the demon dimension at all?" Because if he's the leader, she insists he can't keep forcing himself this far. Like, he glances down and nods like, yeah, it's true, but deep down he's screaming that he can't just play it safe, bark orders, and hide behind everyone else's protection. He tells Sold straight to his face that he never wanted to be that kind of leader, and it throws Sold for a loop when he sees just how much weight the guy is actually shouldering, especially. He grew up watching his father, always standing right at the head of the line, sword blazing in his hand as he led his people. It wasn't only the Hartman House people who adored him. This whole town would swarm together just to catch a glimpse of him and shout his name. Everyone kept staring at how fearless his father was, because as he pushed through anything, the crowd chanted, urging the family to live long and never stop together. And with a sad, gentle smile, he admitted that he'd idolized the guy more than anything, and that his only true dream was to grow up and become exactly like him. He busted his ass trying to become the kind of leader everyone could trust, until everything shattered when his parents died in a sudden accident, and suddenly the whole family name was on his shoulders, with no one to share the burden. Like breaks it down, he ended up taking over as the family head while he was still just a kid, and back then he tried to put on a tough act with everything he had. But the moment he faces the truth, he realizes he's only been scraping by because everyone else kept rescuing him, because even the house staff had to prop him up. And it wasn't just them. He even admits his own little sister, Saluria, was the one who came in to save him. Now he finally gets it. He was always the one trapped in the back of the line, while everyone else stood up front, shielding him, and that's why it all ended with him leaving. Storming off, fists clenched so tight frustration could have split stone, he rips into Sold, telling him just how pathetic it all feels, and admitting he can't forgive himself for being that way. Like slumps on his gear with his head buried in his hands, completely broken, while Saul just stands there, staring at him like he can't believe what he's seeing. He insists, "I was stubborn enough to drag myself all the way into the demon dimension, and still I'm useless because this magic sickness won't let me function." And now the words are creeping out of him. He's starting to fear he'll never be strong like his father was. But Sold fires back and insists, no, that's completely false. He looks up, shocked that Sold even jumps in. Sold leans in and tells him, "Everyone's weak, especially a guy like you, who can't even throw a single lick of magic." He stares down and admits it. He always feels like the most useless character in the story, good for nothing except getting protected. Sold begs him to believe change is real and screams for him to take control of the sword. And it all boils down to one thing, a heart that refuses to stop believing, the same way Sold's dad used to watch him train in the rain. Sold clamps down on his blade with total confidence, knowing that exact mindset is what's powering him forward. Right next to her, Saluria shuts her eyes and prays, while Tilty stands just behind, staring at the unfolding moment like it's about to explode. Like replays the word believe in his head, then tells Soul that he's finally cracked what he's been trying to say. Sold says real strength doesn't come from raw power, it comes from the burn in your soul, and it only works if you truly, deeply believe in it. So yeah, thanks for the advice, and he's like, alright, I'm gonna try it, ready to finally start believing that even a guy like him could still rise up and become strong. Sold's grin stretches across his face, because he's chasing the same dream his father had, be the kind of person others can stand behind with pride. Right then, Zweig and Audrey burst back into the group, shouting for them and asking how everything went on their side. Zweig talks like it's a straight shot from here, and she looks crazy confident. So Audrey tells everyone that this magic dimension has a shockingly simple layout compared to the others they've already uncovered. Like kicks off his explanation to the others, saying these dungeon dimensions are basically warped slices ripped straight from another world. And when they show up, they're always these tiny, weird-looking little gardens, totally different every single time one appears. Aints jabs a finger at the jagged stretch ahead and says there's a huge dome deeper in, where the core is most likely trapped. But when he sells wonders, he's basically asking what the core even is, so she tells him, it's the heart of the whole magical dimension. He tells you the whole space is packed with raw magic energy, and every single spark of that power is being pumped out by the core. The core's look flips depending on where it's at. One moment it's a living plant, the next it's a glowing magic stone, and it can even pop up like a magic beast, just a monster with the core sitting right inside it. Like ends the lesson by warning you, if you smash the core, the rift to this world finally seals shut for good. Aints tries to brush it off, saying these simple cores aren't a big deal, so Shaltir tells the whole group to move out. Sold follows right behind him but like stays serious, barking at the crew to keep their guard up every second, and he even singles out Saul to stay razor sharp. Sold gets a sick feeling in his gut, because every time he played a game back home, high magic density always meant disaster, and this core level is way higher than anything he's seen. The entire area turns into a storm, white energy whipping around them and jagged shapes snapping into place, as they charge deeper into the distortion, chasing after a giant rift walls tower over the entire place, and the whole squad looks like tiny specks crawling in their shadow. Audrey scans the empty space, then blurts out that he can't spot a core anywhere. Like grease that won't lie, it insists there's no magic beast anywhere, but then the Sold starts clocking something off big time. His eyes snap wide as the threat hits him, coming from somewhere else entirely, and he hurls a scream for everyone to look up. The entire group freezes on the spot, staring up in pure terror as a gigantic shadow crashes down over them. And Zweig can't even get the words out as Ein just stares up, stunned, like there's no way they're serious about that monster bearing down on them. Like boom, he hits the ground, eyes wide with pure terror, and can barely choke out that the thing in front of him is a monster so massive it sells, while the knights look like nothing more than bugs beside its towering wings and brutal tail. It's a three-eyed black dragon, and when it roars, the whole place shakes like it's about to collapse. Zweig spots it and realizes this is the legendary dragon from the old tales, while Ein screams that it's not a myth, they're staring down a real black dragon. Like starts spiraling, sweating buckets, and blurts out how he's even supposed to take down a core that's basically a giant monster. Sold strides forward with his sword up, flat out insisting that all he needs is for you to trust him. The kid stares dead ahead, locked in like a promise. No matter what kind of enemy comes at them, they're winning. His voice booms through the cavern as he rallies the whole group. No way they're losing this fight. Sold raised his blade and snapped into a flawless stance, eyes locked, like he was ready to strike the second anything moved. Zweig insists the kid's right, and Aints backs him up, saying if that dragon's the core, then they've got to go all in. The black dragon digs in, lets out a thunderous roar that shakes the entire cave, and then and before they can even say, wait, the moment they try to talk, it shuts them down, like it's got zero interest in listening. It throws its mouth wide open and unleashes a tidal blast of dark fire that just swallows the whole place. Sold and the knights huddle together against the blazing heat. They're pinned in place as the flames surge closer, so they've got to avoid. A voice yells for a water wall, then a monstrous splash of magic crashes into the fire and smothers it. Sold yells at Zweig, gripping the shield and staring in disbelief at just how brutal those flames are. Zweig suddenly realizes her magic is maxing out, blurts to the guys that she can't keep it up much longer, and then what? As the dragon powers up for another brutal strike, everyone's forced into panic, back up, but Saul only looks pissed. He's done hanging around, and the moment he's ready, he's about to strike. He screams at the top of his lungs as the entire room detonates into a wild storm of fire and magic. The dragon snaps its head up in pure shock, then a massive strike crashes down out of nowhere, and it never saw it coming, not even for a second. A blinding light erupts as the strike slams straight into the beast's head. Sold snaps into it. This isn't just about Tilty anymore, and at last he figures out the real trick to using his power, so he roars that he's doing it to save his friends. Then in a blink, he blasts his water wolf technique in one wild flash. Knights are losing their minds over his magic ice sword. I'm still in shock the kid froze the whole dragon. And the monster is frozen stiff, like a statue, trapped under this thick slab of ice, totally shut down for now, just staring as it thinks, this kid's power is straight up insane. He starts spiraling in his own thoughts, finally admitting he's terrified, so terrified his body won't even move. He grips his fist so hard it starts to tremble, and yeah, he can't stand how pathetic he feels, especially knowing he's the only one who froze. But Sold yells, not yet, staying locked on guard as he braces for the next round. Sold stares at the massive frozen chunk and demands, is the black dragon still alive? And then, right on cue, the moment the words leave his mouth, even the monster smashes the ice into a million glittering shards, towers up like a nightmare, and unleashes a roar that rattles everything to the bone, while as it claws back from the dead, its scream rips through the air, and those razor-sharp teeth come bearing wide like a nightmare grin. The dragon squints, glares them down, and shakes its head hard to finally blast the rest of the frost away. Seeing the beast about to pounce, one knight shouts for a rock wall, and a brutal stone barrier slams down in time, trapping the group stays hidden for now. Audrey says they can lay low a while, but he insists they're playing a losing game, and there's no way they're winning. Soul refuses to quit, telling them they just need to hunt down the dragon's weak spot. Then it hits them like a bolt out of nowhere, completely blindsiding them. Sold swears he knows exactly what he's saying, flashing back to the game world when this beast was an absolute nightmare. And there's one crucial spot on the reverse scale they have to zero in on. He explains that even their puny attacks can't even nick its armor, and that's exactly why they've failed to bring it down every single time. Sold swears the only way to hurt the dragon is to nail the reverse scale on its throat, do it right, and the damage finally counts. Actually take it down. Like that hits him, and suddenly he panics, wondering how they're even supposed to get close enough because slipping through those massive flames is going to be a brutal nightmare. So the group crouches low behind the rocks while, as Ein snaps back, asking if they can really trust him for this, Audrey cuts in. He only has to land one flawless heavy hit or he's done. They strike right at that weak spot. Zweig swears he'll get all the support they can, and Audrey hits back, saying the knights will act as decoys. Sold finally gets the opening he's been hunting. He nods to the plan, then immediately stares at his weapon and realizes the big problem he needs to deal with. His sword might not survive, so Zweig shoves her own into his hands, yet every time he lands a high-level move, the blade snaps and Sold knows. They only get one shot, so he swears he's going to make it count. Then, right when he's about to move, he snaps, "Wait." Everyone freezes and whips their heads toward him, standing alone in the middle of the cave, while that dragon looms just a few steps away. He locks eyes with them, face set in pure seriousness, and flat out says he wants to jump in and help with the fight too. The knights are absolutely stunned by Like's request. He's shouting it like he's lost his mind, and they scramble to talk him out of it, begging him to stop, because there's no way he should throw himself into that kind of danger, especially since Audrey is shaking with fear of what could happen if the young master gets hurt. He snaps that if anything happened to him, it would spell the end of everything. But then, Lake clenches his fist so hard it trembles, as he growls that he knows exactly what's on the line. He gets the danger, but he refuses to stand there, while everyone else throws down and then he steps in and straight up breaks the tension, telling him, clear as day, that he believes in him, meeting his eyes like, "I got you," and it all cuts off mid-sentence as the fear swirls. It screams at them to team up, dive in and take the dragon down together, while the knight watches, jaw clenched, holding his ground like a wall, and finally he flashes a confident smile, gives a quick nod and agrees to the plan, while Sold fires back with the same grin, and the two of them lock in, ready to go all out. And that's when the knights get slammed with emotions. Seeing the young master step up like this lights a fire of pride in them, even if one of the old veteran knights just growls to mask what he's really feeling. He forces himself to lock onto the mission. But when everything crashes in a heartbeat, someone yells at them to watch out. Then Audrey suddenly barrels them aside like, "Move," before the danger hits. When the dragon slams to the ground, its gigantic jaws snap and lunge at everyone in sight. Like spots them at last, "So you're here." Then the knights whip into formation, scrambling into place, and right away, one of them kicks things off by shouting an aqua chain spell. Water spirals and crashes through the whole area like a storm. Then he chains it into a rock lock move, and massive chunks of stone explode straight out of the ground. And the water chains cinch tight around the dragon's head, clamping its jaws shut as, with a bone-crunching slam, the heavy rock dropped on its claws, pinning it so hard it couldn't budge a single inch. A muffled roar rips through the air as the knight digs in with every ounce of strength, forcing the monster to stay pinned, and then he snaps his gaze to Saul and orders him to strike right now, because he's fighting to keep the dragon pinned down, and he blurts that he can't keep this magic going much longer. Sold snaps back, "I'm on it," and grips his sword so tight his knuckles whiten as he steps up, and he launches into a sprint straight at the beast, zeroing in on the exact spot he has to smash to flip the reverse scale. Sold finally locks eyes on the glowing reverse scale perched right on the dragon's neck, and he surges forward, yelling, "It's right there," as he throws every ounce of power into one brutal strike. The dragon jolts from the impact so hard it nearly panics, then it doesn't drop it. It rockets into the sky, ripping through the air with a massive shockwave that blasts dirt and rocks everywhere. The knights get blindsided. One of them can barely process how violently it moved, and the moment another soldier spots the target slipping into the sky, panic hits him instantly. He blasts a warning for everyone to watch out, cursing under his breath as the advantage slips right out of their hands. Way up above, the dragon rumbles a deep growl, staring down at those knights who just stand there cussing like it changes anything. And one of the men finally breaks and admits he feels totally useless now that the beast is out of reach. That dragon glares back with a cold, slit-eyed stare, perfectly poised to strike the second the opening appears. He clenches his teeth, feeling completely useless because he can't stop the beast at all, and just as he's beating himself up, his eyes snap wide open, and the moment he spots it, his feet freeze like they hit a wall. He spots those sodders standing there alone, snaps into panic, and screams at the kid to get out of there and run for his life. But Soul doesn't even blink. He plants his feet, wears that calm look like a shield, and stares back like he's got everything locked down. The kid blurts out that he actually believes in him, exactly the one thing nobody expected to hear right now. He just freezes, staring back in stunned silence at the kid's outrageous confidence, Meanwhile, the dragon hangs right over their heads, yanks its giant jaws open, and a blinding light surges and builds inside its throat. It unleashes a brutal blast of energy that crashes into the earth with knockout force, strong enough to obliterate everything in its path. A brutal cloud of dust and smoke explodes upward, swallowing the ground whole as the dragon looms overhead, watching it all unfold. The beast looms through the fog, bares its teeth, and just waits, hunting for the one thing left standing after that impact. Saul rockets from the sky like an actual meteor, swinging his blade straight at the dragon. His heart's pounding in his throat as he shouts, begging the kid to bring an end to this. He's counting on him. They surge forward in one last, desperate push, pressure cranking up as Sold lines up his shot. He fires back, Sold screams that he's got it, then his face hardens, like he'll never back down for a second. He swings with every ounce of strength, unleashing a thunderous strike that hacks straight through the beast. The dragon barely even registers the attack before that crushing power slams into it and completely destroys it. The massive creature slams into the ground for good, blasting dust and smoke into the air as the whole battle finally cuts out. The nearby knights explode into cheers, stunned that they actually pulled it off, and screaming that the teamwork was on a whole other level. Soul just lets out a sly little laugh like, "See, this win is mine because I held it all together." But he just refuses to take that, telling the kid, "Yeah, you're the real reason we're still standing." Like Stan stood there staring down, confessing he wanted to be brave. Then his legs totally locked up the second that dragon came into view. But when Saul leapt straight into the fight with zero hesitation, it ignited the courage he'd been missing. He tells the kid that watching him stand there, fearless, against that kind of monster is exactly the hero he's always worshipped, and when he starts thanking him, Soul's cheeks explode into a full-on blush from all that praise. The knights just laugh it off, calling that shattered sword a small price for slaying the dragon, and then even offers his own blade, right as the moment starts. Now that the beast is finally gone for good, they waste no time and start heading out. He pulled back, watching the Sold stops grind to a halt, and when he looked over his shoulder, chills ripped down his spine. And you're right, those dragon eyes snap open again, and it's staring straight at him like it never blinked. Dark energy thrums through its scales, and it looks absolutely wrecked, far worse than before. And when he sells it, he snaps into confusion. How is it still moving if he aimed straight at the weak point? Sold realizes he massively underestimated the black dragon. This is as bad as it gets, and he knows it, so is they. With the flames closing in on his mind, his thoughts went haywire, 1,000,000 fears crashing at once, while the others could only stare, trapped, and scream. But Sold doesn't even get a second to process. His body just takes over, and right then, the dragon unleashes a monstrous blast of fire, one that should have obliterated everyone right there and then. Ain's grabs yank at him like a trap, and Audrey just stares as the inferno swallows them. Like the whole scene is begging for revenge, because if that was a direct hit, there's no way this kid could have survived. From high above, the dragon's breath looks like it's swallowing the entire area, but right at the center, a tiny bubble refuses to break. Even the dragon looks stunned as the fire starts spiraling, yanking away from the target, leaving the. Audrey bolts out of the night, frozen in shock. "What is happening?" she blurts, while Alex stares, realizing the fire isn't just burning, it's getting tugged like it's being pulled. Heat and power slam into one pinpoint, and it all starts sucking towards Soul like he's a human vacuum. Like stairs rising out of the blast, he can't even breathe in disbelief, and he yells because Saul is standing smack in the middle of that blazing heat. He instantly clocks it. This is just like his battle with Fenrir, and he can feel it in his bones. The dragon is absolutely spitting out demonic power, so he grips his sword like it's life itself. Then, boom, a brand new move sparks in his mind, right there. And then he erupts into maniacal laughter, screaming that this is the greatest feeling imaginable as dark energy whips and swirls around his body. Like screams sold his name, and the knights just stood there, frozen in pure shock. Audrey couldn't even process it, staring at the kid like, "Wait, you really inhaled all those flames?" And Licky realizes the literal trade sold, because he thanks the black dragon, turned the fire into a brand new blade. Then the black dragon tells the beast, "Because of this attack, you've managed to." He surges forward and evolves into something even stronger. Then those marks flare on his face, and suddenly he's a whole new person, standing there with a massive grin. The dragon bellows in pure frustration, but Soul just grins and stays ice cold. He's ready. And his knights freeze in total shock, because what they're seeing makes zero sense, and can't stop wondering what kind of insane power Sword Sail is truly hiding, since nobody should be able to turn a dragon's breath into a blade like that. Saul shoots a calm stare, locked in tight, because he's about to show everyone exactly what his demon god style can do. Soul just stands there, those dark marks burning on his face, as he feels the power surge through him. Then he blurts out that he's finally starting to crack how to trigger this brand new ability. He's breaking it down like, first you lock in the exact stance, then you square up and take the enemy's strike straight on. And just as he's picturing it, he finally gets it. Just taking the hit won't make it work, because the real fight lives in your head. Because he knows he's got to dig deep and keep moving to protect himself and everyone he loves, so he steels his will and holds his ground like the battle depends on it with the dragon roaring again, it unleashes a massive blast, straight for him. The entire area detonates at once, swallowing everything in a blinding, white-hot flash. They completely lose it, scream Soul's name at the top of their lungs. Sure, the kid just got vaporized, but Soul is still locked in. He realizes this power isn't finished, and suddenly he can feel the demon god vibe living deep inside his own body. He names the move Ice Wolf Flash ***, and then drops the bombshell. His sword now bleeds out a blade of ice that freezes anything it lands on. It's like the sword carries the ice, but his own body snaps to instincts that track and finish the prey. When Soul thinks about what's really lurking inside his sword, a brand new power sparks to life in him, like a wolf's speed is roaring through his own body. And his eyes suddenly sharpen, as he braces himself to dive out of the sky and slam in for the strike. Then it hits him. He's holding the black dragon's own blade of flame in his hands, and he can't even breathe before So he rockets ahead, shouting for the luck dragon, black dragon's flame wings. He rips out a massive roar, and his entire body turns into a blazing streak, straight up looking like a dragon. Slicing across the sky at an insane speed, it tore through the air and screamed a blazing trail behind it. The dragon spots it coming, but it's sluggish before it can react, and he hurled those screams at the beast, daring it to chew up its own roaring flames. He crashes into the dragon's neck with full force, and right as the impact, a colossal pillar of fire detonates skyward, slamming the dragon's head backward and wrecking the whole place in one furious blast. Like those knights are going absolutely feral, screaming and cheering at the top of their lungs because Soul's blade is completely snapped right off at the handle, and you can tell he poured every ounce of strength into that final hit. He blasted out of the smoke, fist pumping like a drum, and celebrated the huge win while everyone stared. The black dragon, the heart of this whole demon dimension, finally begins to burn away into nothing, and once the dust clears, the whole crew just freezes on the spot, gasping and trying to get their breath back. Soul turns toward Lai with a massive grin, while Lai stands there totally stunned, frozen by the kid's insane power. When the dragon finally disappears, it drops a huge glowing magic stone right in front of them, like it's daring them to pick it up. So Audrey blurts out, "What's something that huge even worth?" And Ein answers without blinking, "Easy, at least $1 billion. It'll sell fast." He sells the stairs by the giant magic stone, and then it hits him. With a find like this, he can actually pull it off. He finally knows he's capable of forging the sword he's been obsessing over. Soul grins as he imagines Tilty's joy, then leans in and tells her to just hang on and wait for the surprise. Back at the Hartman estate, everything pivots to Tilty, who's right there, caught in the middle of it all. Straining with every ounce of strength, she fought to trap the pain before it could slip out. She tries to wrestle a massive swirl of dark energy, while Siluria shouts her encouragement. Yet Tilty only grunts, SHH. She's pouring every ounce of control she's got into it. Siluria flashes a grin and says, "I'm almost there." But then Tilty finally snaps at her limit and gasps like her lungs can't take it anymore. Watching as the dark power she was trying to forge exploded into 1,000 tiny shards. She drops to her knees, lungs burning, rage flaring because she failed again. Then Siluria steps in and tries to get her to finally take a breather after years of non-stop training. But Tilty just tilts her head, looks up, and says she keeps pushing forward because her big brother is grinding, and she's got to match his pace. Siluria tells Tilty she's being stubborn to the point it's hurting her training, and Tilty just laughs it off, then blurts out that she's sorry for acting that way. But then, a massive explosion blasts through the whole building. Siluria screams as the walls pound and dust rains down everywhere. Siluria jabs a finger at the window and snaps that the sound came from outside, leaving Tilty staring like, wait, what on earth is happening? In the garden below, a massive cloud of smoke and debris smothers the entrance, right where the gate used to stand. The Hartman Knights were splattered across the ground, groaning weakly from the dirt like they couldn't even muster strength to breathe. Commander Ein gapes at the smoke in pure disbelief, because the man standing there was meant to be dead, so how is this even possible? Turns out it's Dagora, straight up a walking nightmare, strolling through the flames with one hand blazing, heat pouring off it. A creepy grin spreads across his face as he prowls the estate, hunting for where his target is hiding. Dagura snaps that the person is a damn brat, swears he'll kill them for real this time, and then he lunges forward with his charred hand, snatches another guard, and flashes that creepy bracelet packed with twitching eyeballs. Tilty's brother braced himself in the wasteland, staring at Dagura's frozen body, and snapping, "Wake up, it's time." He promises he'll deliver a gift as dog, but his face stays locked behind the ice, trapped in that silent screen. He reaches out and declares he's using the power of darkness to battle the darkness itself. And then that creepy bracelet, crawling with eyeballs, clamps down on Dagura's wrist. Dagura groans as he slams onto the ground, and Tilty's brother demands to know if he's finally back among the living. He looked up at his savior as Dagura hailed him master, but the warning hit hard. This was his absolute final shot, and then it cut straight into with the last chance. With ice in his eyes, Tilty's brother barks the final command to go and kill that brat, no hesitation. Dagura feels the power blasting through his veins, like it's so obvious his master doesn't even need to hear a word. It happens the second he unleashes a brutal roar, screaming that this time, he's going to kill him for real. Right outside the Hartman estate, he screams for Saldo to come out, because he's got the kid pegged, and he knows exactly he's hiding inside. Dagura lifts his hand, and a surge of dark energy erupts outward. His wrist's eyeball bracelet blazes with raw power. Rage twists his face as he roars, swearing he'll blow everything in his path to pieces. The earth starts cracking under the relentless pressure, and Saluria freezes in terror as Tilty shouts at him to stop. Saluria tries to tell him her brother isn't around, but Tilty cuts in and declares she won't let anyone lay a hand on the Hartman. Dagura breaks into a creepy grin, jeering at Tilty as the priestess of darkness, then admits he's been waiting for this moment to meet her. He leans in right beside her, grinning like he's daring her, and mocks her to show him that dark power one more time. Tilty snaps at Saluria to stay back, choking out an apology for this mess, but Saluria, still younger and stubborn, refuses to let her take the blame. Saluria tells Tilty, even if the visions dragged you to this mansion like some set destiny. Everything's flipped now. Tilty's caught off guard, because she's acting way too serious for this moment. Saluria tilts her head, locks eyes with them, and vows she'll protect her, because from this moment on, she's done letting fate steer her. Tility locks eyes with the young girl, calling out Saluria's name as she watches that kid's fresh resolve harden into something unshakable. But across the cracked, broken ground, Dagura just bursts into laughter at the thought of protecting anyone. Rage takes over, he loses his temper, screams at them to shut up, and whips his arm back to blast the strike. Tilty snaps into action, shouts for her air wall, and whips up a swirling shield of wind around them both. She doesn't just block, she rockets a massive air vortex straight back into Dagura, slamming him hard. Rage flares in Dogger as he growls at the brat, warning him not to underestimate a man like him. He blasts a colossal surge of energy that tears the whole area apart, and Saluria screams at the top of her lungs. Tilty slams face first into the dirt, groaning through the pain, while Saluria panics and screams her name. But Dagura's already there, pushing through the smoke and yanking Saluria by the collar like she weighs nothing. He slides in with a creepy grin, whispering that the time has come for the priestess to finally cough up every last drop of that dark power. Dagura clamped down on Tilty and screamed at her to finally give up the ultimate power. Saluria shrieks for him to stop, but Dagura rages that he'll slaughter every last one of them unless he gets exactly what he demands. He just stands there cackling, while a monstrous wave of dark energy whips into the air and swirls around the whole area. He's completely falling apart, drool dripping as he's consumed by the thrill of darkness finally breaking through. Saluria gets caught dead center in the surge, and she screams Tilty's name into the chaos while tears pour. Tilty glances up, and boom, she's hit with a vision of her mom, promising her it's all going to be okay. It shoves Tilty forward, and even as tears blur her vision, she steels herself and swears she can handle this. Saluria whips her gaze up in pure shock, locking eyes with Tilty as the whole atmosphere starts to twist and turn. Tilty plants her feet and declares she's done being afraid of the dark, because tonight she's taking control. Dark energy surged toward her, ripping up from the ground in towering, razor-sharp waves that whipped around Saluria. Tilty is completely crushed as cries of pain and sadness slam into her mind, leaving her feeling like she had it, she couldn't take it anymore, and in the dark surge she clutched her head and finally tore the silence apart with one massive scream. Saluria sprints toward her, calling her name, while Tilty drops to her knees, fighting with everything she has just to stay standing. As her mind shatters from the inside out, she forces the words out anyway, telling Siluria through the pain that she's okay. Turns out this dark power is latching onto every shred of the pain Tilty's feeling right this second. And then it clicks: if she wants real control over this power, she's got to beat the hardest opponent of all, the emotion inside her. She's honestly terrified that every ounce of sadness and pain she's survived might finally be more than she can push through. But even while Dagora is holding her captive, she stretches toward the darkness and pleads for a favor. Tears streak down her cheeks as she pleads with that power. Let me turn into something that only multiplies misery. And instead, she throws up a prayer for it to transform into a true power, one that can actually spread happiness to everyone. Dagora looks absolutely terrified and blurts out, "Wait, what the heck is even happening right now?" As the darkness surges in one massive wave around them, he clings to Tilty without letting go. Suddenly, huge shadow hands burst out of the ground and clamp onto Dagora, snatching him up in a heartbeat. And he starts snapping, screaming that something seized his arm as the shadows slam in and wrap him up. Tilty plants her feet, screams into the darkness, and demands it listen to her, because she's not done yet and she's not backing down. And then she unleashes everything. One brutal surge of energy hits Dagora like a wrecking ball, and he howls in pain. Siluria just sits on the ground, frozen in total shock at what she's seeing, but she flashes a tiny smile and murmurs that Tilty really did beat it. Watching Tilty stand tall against the dark power, Siluria suddenly realizes she isn't just facing the darkness, she's the one commanding it. And Tilty clasps her hands, eyes locked in, and declares she's way stronger than all this sorrow. Dagora is slammed in the shadow's vicious grip, his strength slipping away fast, and he screams at whatever's holding him, begging it to let him go. So Tilty refuses to quit. She commands the darkness to swallow her target whole, while pouring everything she's got into the spell. Peering through a magic crystal ball, a mysterious guy clocks the whole show and goes, "Whoa, this display is insanely impressive." The masked man stands his ground and declares that this is the real, undeniable power of the Priestess of Darkness. But he can feel it, there's way more going on, because that abyss of darkness is so bottomless, it still won't let anyone see the truth. He just locks eyes on nothing and blurts out Tilty's name like he knows something worse is about to explode. Back at the fight, Dagora shrieks as the shadows clamp down on him, and Tilty cuts in like, "Just give up already." Siluria stands on the sidelines grinning ear to ear, absolutely stunned by how insanely amazing Tilty is. Dagger's face contorts into a massive scream as the darkness power slams into him and fully takes over, until he can barely rasp out a word, and the only thing left visible is his hand as the shadows swallow him whole. A sickening arm, crawling with eyes, lunges out of the dark and clamps down on whatever's left. A brutal surge of energy detonates through the whole area, ripping the space apart and slamming Tilty backward as she shrieks in shock. Siluria snaps her hands to her eyes, gasping that the darkness is crushing her, and she can't even believe they got blown away. Tilty slumped on the ground, trying to make sense of what the hell just happened, while both of them stared up at the sky and spotted a tiny winged figure hovering way above, leaving. He just abandoned that winged, multi-eyed demon beast floating there, grinning like it had all the time in the world. The creature snarls down at Tilty, slams the word brat in her face, and tells her point blank he's going to kill her. Siluria gapes at the beast in total disbelief, and the only words she can choke out are that, "No way, it's really flying," but Tilty looks absolutely terrified, blurting out Dagora's name, and then realizing that that isn't him at all. She stares at the monster hanging in the air over them, and it hits her fast. Whatever they're seeing, it's not human. The monster grins at her and spits, "Die," then lunges forward with a huge, clawed hand. Siluria shrieks at the top of her lungs, begging Tilty to get out of there. Now, Tilty's eyes blow wide as panic hits. She can't move fast enough. Then boom, he's sold, and out of nowhere he rockets into the scene as the sold guy screams at him to stop. They slam down hard, and a brutal burst of dust and light detonates, clearing the whole area as the shockwave fades, and Siluria tilts her head up, flashes a massive grin, and finally exhales, because help has arrived. Tilty whips her head toward them, and the second the guys step in between her and that thing, her face lights up like hope just won. Siluria yells at her huge brothers, Sold and Reich, demanding to know if they're really okay. At last, the rift to the demon world seals for good, and the crew finally turns their faces back toward town. One of the knights rips out a shout from the front of the carriage, while the rest of the riders shout back in the rear, sold on it and loving every second. As they push closer to the city, the group spots smoke billowing from the mansion like a warning flare. Everyone crowds outside the walls, ready to hammer out a plan, so Sold tells Like, let's fly ahead, and they blast off using Like's wind magic while everyone else lags behind. As soon as they show up, Sold blurts out, "How's Dagora alive again?" while Like glares at that nasty beast, trying to figure out what the hell it even is, but then Saluria snatches her brother by the arm and blurts out that Dagora's been wearing a seriously creepy bracelet. She says that the second the whole situation started glowing weird, Dogra snapped, then transformed into that monster. Sold suddenly realizes this thing was actually in the game, and his stomach drops as he starts wondering if it's cursed in real life. Turns out that cursed tool doesn't just change you, it whips you into a full-blown demon. Then the entire crew gets blindsided when a rough, raspy laugh crackles out, and that voice taunts Soul for finally showing up, calling him a brat. A hulking monster looms in the dust, snarling the same promise over and over, "I'm going to kill Sold," like it's determined to make the terror last. Dagger lets out a blood-curdling scream, then he unleashes a colossal wave of dark energy, roaring, "Everyone die." He screams for them to dodge, and Sold yanks Saluria out of the blast zone before it can hit. And the monster just stands there, soaking in the chaos as his power flares up and lights up the entire area. Everyone freezes and stares at the gigantic dust cloud where the blast landed, but then the blast hits with full fury, shattering the ground and blasting debris through the air like confetti in a storm. Light can't wrap his head around what's happening to his style, and Tilty's like, "I can't get over how much magic power is pouring off this guy." Saluria calls for her brother, and when Sold grabs his clenched fists tight, he can't stop wishing he had a sword in hand, anything to fight back. Suddenly, a hand shoots out and orders the Soul to take the sword he's holding, totally blindsiding everyone. Everyone screams for Aints as he stands there drenched in blood, barely staying upright, still begging for Aints to ask both Like and Saluria to forgive him. He gasped, yelled the man's name one final time, then the old guy's strength slipped away, and he crumpled on the spot. Sold clamps his hand on the sword, and mutters that everything would have turned out different if he'd just finished it the right way. Like yells for everyone to zero in on the wounded, but Saluria can only gawk in stunned silence as Sold steps up. Sold steps up and says he's taking the fight alone, and Saluria can only stand there, watching her big brother stride straight toward the monster. Saluria forces calm into her voice, tells Tilty it'll be fine, and swears the nightmare will be over before long. Saul grabs Dagora's attention and growls, "I'm about to show you what's up," as his blade ignites and burns with scorching heat. He unleashes the legendary Black Dragon's flames and whips his sword through the air in one massive, blazing arc. Tilty gets knocked flat by the flaming sword, stunned to the core as she realizes she might be witnessing a brand new killer technique for the very first time. The monster completely snaps and roars about the sword, feeling the overwhelming heat bearing down on him like a death sentence. Dagura crashes in screaming at a Soul to die, but the kid blasts out a roar and barrels straight back at him. The two collide with a thunderous blast, flames and dark energy exploding outward, and the air between them rips apart. The monster's claw slammed into the power of Souls, wham, and tore a sharp burst of light through the air. A massive surge of energy detonates outward, flooding the entire courtyard in an instant. Dagura gets slammed backward by the impact, roaring like a maniac as he skids and loses his footing. Just like Saluria, sit there staring in pure disbelief as Tilty bursts into cheers, totally jacked up by. Sold stands there, rock steady as the smoke thins, calm as ever, despite the fact that his blade is shattered. A massive crater gapes where the impact hit, and it screams just how much power the kid. Right after he used it, then a creepy laugh slithers out of the smoke, and Saul whips around just as Saluria blurts, "What's happening?" And Dagura hauls himself back up, looking like a straight-up nightmare. Sold is drenched in sweat now, screaming that there's no way Dagora could still be alive. But the monster rips his mouth open and shouts his dark prominence attack, like he's ending the whole fight right there. Dagora throws his arms wide, and dark energy erupts through his entire body like a storm. As the crowd demand answers from him, Lycan Saluria just freezes in total shock, unable to even believe what he's doing. The monster's face starts glowing so hard the light turns blinding, then right as it hits, then boom, the entire area gets ripped apart by a massive surge of energy, and everyone down below can only stare as it swallows everything in sight. With his voice roaring that it's a self-destruct move, while Saluria shrieks Sold's name as the whole town goes into panic, people gasp, point straight at the sky, and scramble to figure out what that blinding light even is. A colossal, destructive energy ball looms dead above the city, right over the Hartman estate. Chaos erupts as the citizens snap, because the attack is barreling straight toward the mansion. While Sold stood frozen, the magic's insane pressure crushing him as he finally realized he didn't have a. He needs a sword to stop it, so he orders Siluria to evacuate everyone nearby, while panic erupts and they scramble for their lives. Sold's stomach drops when he realizes he's not going to make it in time. But right when he's about to give up, a girl suddenly steps in front of him. Tilty grabs the reins and snaps at her big brother. "Leave it to me." Soldia just freezes, completely stunned, shouting her name as if her voice can't believe what she's seeing, because she screams at him to just trust her, as she throws her hands up and lets it out. This dark energy is absolutely unhinged. Sold can't even believe she's really doing this. She kept wrestling with it, praying she'd finally found a strength that won't crumble, won't break. She refuses to lose to the dark. She's still clamping down on a massive wave of power, like it's barely held back. Up above the house, she grunts through the strain, like that force is about to rip her clean off her feet. The whole area starts to roar and shake as the pressure hits. Tilty digs deep and unleashes one last, screaming push, begging the dark energy to obliterate every last shred of the enemy. The windlock snaps on, and a massive vortex traps the whole area in its roaring grip. The monster gets totally blindsided, then lets out this weird, panicked noise as the swirling air tears into its attack and rips it apart. It just stares in total shock, shrieking like, "What the hell is happening to me right now?" Siluria snaps her gaze upward, eyes blazing wide, because the sky just got slammed full of wind magic, and she can't believe how fast it all hit. Like Tilty's getting called out, and Sold's yelling for his friends to back her up with everything they've got, because since Siluria is right there with them, screaming that they'll protect everyone, together, as one unstoppable team. Like he snaps into a full-on scream, swearing he'll save the Hartman family, and rip this whole town out of harm's way before it gets wrecked. The monster groans in agony as the wind pressure starts crushing its hand, then snarls that it's being driven by a bunch of damn brats. But Tilty clenched her jaw, swore she wouldn't lose, and zeroed in on one thing, making sure everyone finally gets to be happy. The wind magic tears through it, and the monster starts shredding apart as it only manages to choke out a. The final few echoes ring out right before the colossal vortex yanks the whole area under. The pressure crushes him, and the monster's colossal hand gets ripped clean off in an instant. The three of them huddled close and poured everything they had into one final blast of magic. When the dust finally settles, he exhales like he's been holding his breath forever and blurts, "We actually did it." And that's when everything. Siluria beams and gladly agrees as everyone crowds in front of the house, shouting their big win like it's the best thing that ever happened. Tilty's so hyped she charges straight into Sold, shouting that she did it, calling him her big brother. But Saul just freezes in place, eyes blank, completely shell-shocked, and Tilty suddenly clocks what she just blurted out, then panics, repeating the words again as embarrassment burns her face. Sold bolted to cover the awkward silence, yanked her into a huge hug, and blurted that she was freaking amazing. Sold feels completely swamped by everything going on, while Tilty just keeps giggling and clinging to him, yet but he can't shake the magic she just unleashed, because it's a horrifying power that devours and erases every shred of darkness it hits. And that's exactly why she's the toughest villainess the game world has ever thrown at us. She stands there with a dark aura swirling around her, and you can tell she's summoning power ripped straight from pure despair. Sold cradles her tight, swearing, right there, that he'll never let this kind of power slip into the wrong, evil hands again. Next up, he calls out Chex's claims, and says that after the estate got evacuated, nobody was actually hurt. He's practically glowing, because hearing everyone's safe makes his whole world light up. He can't stop replaying the attack in his head, and he demands to know if Dagora was sent there on Walger's orders. But like S not buying it, he snaps that Walger's probably a fool, yet he's not dumb enough to pull something this forceful, not after. Because his real endgame is clear, take over the whole town. Like he looked absolutely wrecked as he told them, straight up, if the townspeople learned Walger killed them, he'd get nothing but total condemnation. So he figures there's a 90% chance this was just Dagora losing it, running his own brutal rampage, because he remembers Dagora looking like a straight-up monster, all consumed with slaughtering the sold, and he sold the chimes and swore up, and down that cursed tool Siluria was the real spark, the thing that kicked off the entire rampage. Frey and Siluria stare as Like's face crumples in pure shock. He blurts, repeats, and just can't accept what he's seeing, the cursed tool. Sold keeps going and reveals the truth. This gear is cursed, and the moment someone puts it on, it unleashes wild demonic power inside them. He snaps back to his game instincts, remembering that this is a rare item, one you mostly only find in the magic dimension, which, it feels like that old paper he once read. He even says it warned that you can steal that kind of power, but the price is getting swallowed by evil, and it keeps cutting him off mid-sentence, like the truth hits too hard. And Frey nods along, because the second she touches Dagora's bracelet, it feels wrong in her bones, like it's absolutely drenched in magic. The whole crew huddles in the wreckage, staring at each other like, who in their right mind would do this to Dagora? Sold's eyes narrow. If it was Walger, then it has to be a whole group. A shadowy crew called the Titans, secretly pulling the strings behind the scenes. Soldiers start fixating on the Titans, wondering if they've been after one thing the whole time, capturing Tilty. That realization hits like a brick. Dagora really could have wiped out every single one of them. He finally admits it's the truth, yet he still can't crack what the Titans are truly hunting for in the long run. And right when the room starts to go quiet, Saluria blurts out that she's totally fine, and everyone's instantly blindsided. She locks eyes with pure determination, screams that she'll never lose to guys like the Titans, and then she steps up like she's ready to fight too. Saul just stares at her, but the second it happens, his mind slams straight back to Tilty and the danger closing in on her. So yeah, he's like he's spring-loaded. Cells jumps in to prove his power is the real deal, and honestly, watching it was wild. Frey bursts out laughing and says they nailed their training for 3 full days, but Cells is totally stunned, because he honestly thought it was only 1. He points out they were only supposed to be trapped in that demon dimension for 24 hours, then he breaks it down. Time moves totally different in there. It finally clicks. He remembers what he knows about games, and realizes spending a whole day in that dimension makes 3 days tear by in the real world. Honestly, Sold and Tilty teaming up has them looking wildly unstoppable, like their crew's basically invincible now. Sold stares at Tilty and realizes her power is basically untouchable, the strongest thing around. It's the ultimate villain's legendary power in the game, famed for one thing above all, the power of despair. He clamps his hands on her shoulders as Saluria freezes, and suddenly he spirals into thoughts of the dark destiny of ruin, waiting just for her, right around the corner. Why her brother is acting so weird, groans ripped out of her as her mind spiraled, completely crushed by the weight of her fate, and Tilty clocks it instantly and blurts out, "You okay?" Because the second he looks at him, he's acting like he's just seen a ghost. Saul tries to play it cool and blurts that he's fine, but Saluria clocks it instantly. Something's definitely off as everything starts to blur, and in that instant he realizes his head isn't worth it. Tilty can't believe he's working right anymore. She gapes at him with wide, shaking eyes, totally terrified for what might happen next. As Like and Saluria unravel into full-on panic, they shriek in shock when they see him begin to topple over. Sold's legs crumpled, he slammed into the ground, and all 3 of them scrambled in a panic to help him up. Saluria stands frozen, staring in shock as it all unfolds right in front of her eyes. While Like starts yelling at full volume, Tilty looks seconds away from snapping, and both of them scrambling over to the middle of the courtyard, and Saluria lets out a frantic scream as they finally reach him. Later that night at the estate, the chaos finally dies down and the whole place starts to fall quiet. As Baba breaks it down, she goes, "It's a straight-up mana depletion case," and she adds, "Sold probably just keeled over from burning way too much magic." He tells them to breathe and stay calm, because he's going to be totally fine, as long as he gets some real rest. Tilty, just like in Saluria, stood beside his bed, guarding him through the night as he slept. Like, doesn't it feel weird that Saul's mana is draining when he's not even supposed to be able to use magic? So, that insane sword technique has to be the reason. He even says it honestly blows his mind how that guy pulls out that much power, and it leaves. Saluria just stood there, staring down at him, and quietly called out to her big brother. Sold is out cold, a towel slapped on his head, and it hits you. He didn't faint for some mystery reason, he just got wrecked by the brutal strain of that demon god style. But the kid wouldn't learn the real details of what happened to him until way later. Right as he sprawled there, the knights smash into the room, screaming for the young master and the princess, while Sold is so out of it that he doesn't even realize what's happening. He's down on the floor, and right then Zweig and Audrey burst in, freaking out because they heard everything, and they need to know if he's really okay. He steps in like, "All right, everyone breathe, Soul just needs real rest," and with that he reassures them, swearing he'll be back on his feet soon. The guards finally breathe easy. Zweig's just grateful he's safe, and Audrey urges everyone to pray he heals fast. But then Zweig snaps into a new tone and starts talking like they actually pulled off what he wanted, like they brought it back for him. And then with this calm little grin, he flashes her a slick thumbs up like he's got the whole situation handled. Tilty just stands there, jaw dropped, frantically trying to make sense of what they really dug up. Until she spots Zwig lifting this huge, glowing crystal, then she blurts, "That's the magic stone, right?" And Zwig grins back, "Yep, you nailed it." Adrienne flashes his flashy wigs like trophies, showing off the loot and bragging how they hauled in the magic stone right after the black dragon was finally down. And it turns out this little thing is a monster payday, worth a cool billion minimum. So like stepped up and used the money to fund the city's repairs, because that stone officially belonged to him. Tilty just stands there, totally speechless, trying to process the massive scale of everything crashing into her mind, until she finally snaps out of it and blurts out that she's got a real request she wants to make. Her sudden seriousness smashes right into the knight's guard, and Zweig, of all people, looks utterly stunned as he can't even react. And even Light stalls in confusion, wondering what Tati could possibly want right now. Tilty just locks onto the horizon, her eyes blazing with unbreakable determination. Moving on, the rest of the town lies silent beneath a sky packed with stars. At the forge, Frey's still wide awake. She's hammering her anvil nonstop, sparks flying. Frey abruptly snaps her work to a halt, raises her goggles, and stares at the forge entrance. Who in the world is coming this late? She swings the door open and freezes. Tilty's right there, staring with a cart, demanding to know what could possibly be wrong. Tilty flashes a smile and reminds her about the promise they made, while Lake stands right behind her, practically glowing with pride. Frey's jaw slams open, and she stares in total shock at whatever they're showing her. They marched that massive magic stone straight into her shop, and she couldn't even blink, because her eyes refused to believe what she was seeing. Tilty's practically buzzing with adrenaline, because she finally stormed into Frey's place with the goods. Frey's forehead starts to sweat as she finally clicks. Tilty really hauled in every single magic stone they found, and that's the part that hits harder. Tilty drops into a deep bow, pleading with Frey to use those stones to forge a special sword for her big brother. She goes deadly serious, explaining that regular blades snap on the spot because they can't possibly keep up with his insane, unstoppable skill. Even when his gear craps out on him, he throws himself into the fight with everything he's got, because he'll do whatever it takes to keep everyone safe. Tilty keeps spilling her heart out with her head down, begging him to keep going until his body finally collapses. But she knows if he really had a magic stone sword in his hands, he'd finally unleash everything and stop holding back. She knows asking for this is basically demanding something way too expensive, but she keeps pleading with Frey anyway. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew just stands there, stunned as she gives her all, fighting with every ounce of strength to save her brother. Siluria's voice dropped as she said Tilty's mansion is still half ruined, and they're staring down the barrel of needing a mountain of money to fix it. But then like locks eyes with you and drops the truth. At the end of the day, it all boils down to money. Aints and Audrey jump in too, pointing out that Sold's sword has saved tons of lives. So yeah, there's that end. And Siluria makes it crystal clear. He's not just going to save more people someday. He's going to rack up countless lives saved in the future. Tilty's eyes start to water as it hits her. Some value can't be bought with money, and the realization slams into her so hard, so like. She whips around to the blacksmith grinning wide, then demands, without holding back, that he use every magic stone they brought. Sold really deserves it. He's proven to everyone that every bit of effort paid off. Between Tilty's heartfelt wish and Rake's sharp planning, everything finally starts moving forward. Rick finally wrestles the massive magic stone into Frey's hands, and as the blacksmith peers at it, then gasps, "The magic in this is wild. This job is going to be one hell of a challenge." Tilty locks eyes with her and pleads, "Use that power, make the sword." So Frey whips her gaze back to Tilty, still reeling at how utterly pathetic she looked the very first time they met. She earned that tough look she's wearing right now, because she won't stop until she can fight for her big brother. She pats Tilty on the head, tells her to hand it over to her, and swears she'll forge the greatest sword anyone has ever laid eyes on. But she insists that Tilty has to tell Saldo to stop wasting his life asleep. Tilty flashes her a huge smile and blurts out, "Thanks for everything. When I look back, it's wild." Tilty got way stronger while everyone's eyes were elsewhere. By the next morning, the entire town floods into the square, desperate to hear every detail of what just happened. Like steps onto the stage beside Siluria and blasts the news to everyone. Dagora attacked them yesterday, so now they can finally breathe easy. He roars at the top of his lungs that he's killed Dagora, blasting the news so loud the entire crowd can't miss it. The crowd flips out, cheering and praying at full volume. stunned with relief now that the villain is finally erased for good. They keep chanting like they're in Siluria, cheering the victory so hard it feels like the best day this town has ever lived. Everyone is screaming that Lyle is a hero, shouting blessings for the Hartman family, while Siluria just stands there, soaking up every loud moment. But Like turns his back to the crowd and tells them, "I didn't do this alone, because the real hero who saved them is still out there. He was the one who rose up when Dagger attacked, even as everything looked utterly hopeless." Before the attack even hit, he tells us this wild demonic dimension tore open out of nowhere, and on top of that chaos, they had to fight a legendary dragon too. Light barrels into the crowd, shouting the truth about a no-holds-barred life-or-death showdown against the Black Dragon. And he doesn't hold back. He straight up admits his legs were totally frozen with fear the moment it happened. But then he blurts out to everyone that he had a friend standing right there, pushing him to finally find the courage to take that one bold step forward. And he tells you about this kid who was smaller than him, couldn't land a single spell, yet still clung to his own path like it was destiny. Watching the boy grab a sword and grind every day until he got strong, refusing to let a single hardship crush him because he's the real hero. He's the one who actually saved the town. So he points himself out to the whole crowd and he bellows his name at the very top of his lungs, making a dramatic entrance and presenting the son of the Ranger family who was sold to a ranger. He lifts his fist and screams at everyone to give it up, because the guy who risked his life is finally resting right now. And the whole place erupts, everyone's chanting Lord Sold, shouting he's the hero of the town. They keep screaming for the Ranger family, then Sold finally snaps to it, because that little speech just turned him into a legend. Back in the mountains, Gallant is out in the fields like it's any ordinary day, totally clueless while his reputation explodes behind his back, and his wife, Muro, is shouting at him to finally take a break. Back at the ceremony, he rides the hype and tells the crowd, "Don't just celebrate me, there's another hero." He makes sure everyone sees that Sold's sister was right there, fighting beside him the whole time. He drags Tilty into the middle of the whole town and screams for everyone to hand her over, and boom, 1 second later, the spotlight snaps onto Tilty as the crowd goes completely feral. The whole crowd erupts, screaming at full power as they chant, "Long live Lady Tilty," and "Long live the Ranger siblings," and you can tell right there, they've become this town's biggest stars. Tilty just smirked, realizing every bit of this was straight from Like's master plan, turn the whole town into her allies, so any enemy trying to mess with her has to fight the entire place. While the Hartman name rises higher than ever, the corrupt nobles' reputations crash hard, and the crowd's roar only drives the bad guys further into the ground. Walger Debahip is back at his place, clutching his head like he's going insane, screaming curses at the Hartmans and the Rangers, blaming them for everything that got ruined. Rage is rattling through him as he tells himself his family is the only crew worthy to rule the town, yet the truth is finally starting to sink in. He can't believe the townspeople are brushing him off just to hype up a bunch of brats, and the more he spirals, the less he can make sense of how everything flipped like this. His face is practically going crimson as he seethes, convinced every bit of this disaster traces back to Dagora, going rogue and yanking the whole operation out from under him. Walger is spiraling into a full-on meltdown, yanking at his hair and pouring sweat, roaring in his head, "Why am I the one getting blamed? I swear I didn't do anything wrong." A sharp voice snaps through his whining, ripping into him. This entire disaster is his fault. And just then a mystery figure in a fur-lined cloak strides into the room. The visitor snaps the warning into Walger's face. This is his last shot, and the noble can only choke out a terrified squeak as he stares up. Tilty's brother looms there like a warning sign, pointing out that Walger still somehow botched capturing the Dark Priestess, so the noble is left groveling, begging his master for mercy. He stares down at Walger with those cold, razor-sharp eyes and spits that he's completely useless, so that's why. He had to show up in person and take over, because Walger couldn't handle the job by himself. Walger stays on his knees, shouting at the top of his lungs that none of this is his fault, insisting the Hartman family is the real reason everything went up in flames. Tilty's brother lets out a sinister little laugh, murmurs, "Very well," then pivots away from the noble as he slips into his next move. At the Hartman estate, Tilty gets blindsided by something the moment her brother says the Dark Priestess will be keeping watch for a while. On the balcony, the masked man leans in and tells him straight. The darkness keeps swelling, and it's gorging on every emotion running through everyone involved. The narrator leans in and reveals the wild truth. While Siluria fought through all that chaos with Dagora, her power shot up like a rocket. And as she pushes deeper, it's only going to get crazier from there. Back at the mansion, Walger is completely baffled. He demands to know how the master drove Dagora out of his mind. Then Tilty's brother snaps, "Stay calm," because he has one burning question and he fires it at Walger. Does he still want to run this town? Walger doesn't even think twice, he just shouts, "Yes." So the masked man swoops in and offers him the power to rule over everything, then drops this whole darkness thing, and Walger's even more lost than before. But Tilty's brother cracks it wide open. He's going to weaponize Walger's greed to make it happen, and he stretches his hand toward the noble. And just as he keeps talking about that dark power, Walger's calm snaps. He freaks out, breaks down, and screams for his master. That creepy dark energy in his eyes surges in and takes control as the voice orders him to grow this power, and it all starts to spiral, until a horrific scream tears through the mansion walls, echoing everywhere. From the window, Tilty's brother watches in shock. The young swordsman's blade isn't just a sail, it's the missing key to Tilty's rise. Tilty's brother just glares into the distance, stuck on that sword ranger, and how the magic in his blade looks way too much like the darkness. He just chuckles to himself, swearing they'll uncover the truth soon, like he can't wait for what the next experiment is about to unleash. Back at the house, Sold is still sprawled out on his bed, knocked out cold, until he finally wakes up and realizes a brand new disaster is already brewing. He just lies there with his eyes shut, replaying the moment like, I had zero clue what was coming next. Down at the blacksmith shop, the lights still blaze deep into the night, and every clang of hammer on metal keeps screaming through the silence. Inside, Frey grinds away at her work, snarling that this magic stone won't budge, yet she refuses to quit. She thrusts her hammer high, taunting the stone like, "Come on then," because she's forging it, no matter what, and with fire in her eyes, she swears she'll forge it into the greatest sword ever made. While Saul sits in peaceful sleep, Frey's voice rings out, promising him to wait right there and see what she's about to whip up. 3 days have passed since Dagora fell, and now Tilty and Siluria stand there, faces set like they're bracing for the next disaster. In the room, Siluria darts her eyes to the bed and blurts out that her big brother isn't waking up at all, while, as she fights to keep her chin up, she tells Tilty, Sold's going to get better real soon, and Tilty can only nod along, agreeing. Sold swears he was still dead asleep the whole time, and he had zero idea a brand new threat was already creeping closer, right then. Then Zweig explodes into the room, shouting that the young master is calling for both of them, right now. Siluria demands to know what happened to her brother, but Zweig snaps back, roaring that they've shown up again, and then it cuts out. Outside, the whole town is chaos, people sprinting for their lives while flames erupt everywhere. The whole town erupts in screams because the fiends are here again, and there are just way too many of them to take down, but old tales warn that once a human gets twisted by a cursed tool, they don't just change, they transform into those things people call *magin*. Like tells the girls, there's a report of something that looks just like dog, it's tearing up the town right now. Inside the office, a night guard bursts in to warn them, someone's at it again, using cursed tools. And just like that, he snaps into action, yelling that the Hartman family's strongest forces are coming to slam the brakes on the damage before it spreads any farther. He scans his team, then turns to Audrey, Zweig, and Silria, "Can I count on you?" And each of them fires back a quick, solid yes. Everything starts flying by at full speed, and like turns to Tilty, telling her he has to borrow her strength for this fight too. Tilly's hype is through the roof. She tells Reich, "I'm in for sure," while Light barks the last orders, promising he and Aints will run the chaos from the mansion. The whole team bursts out to move. Smoke and roaring flames swallow the whole town as the assault rages harder and harder, and the locals start losing it, but the knights push hard to get everyone out of the area safely. Right in the middle of the street, 3 Magins pop up out of nowhere and start smashing everything in sight. The Magin creatures flood the streets, cackling as they chant their plan to obliterate everything, and the lead monster charges straight into the camera frame, eyes locked on one thing, obliterating the entire city like it's the only obsession it has. The Hartman Knights don't even pause. They blast the beast the second it shows up, chaining an aqua lance into a rock axe combo. That blasts the creature flying backward, slamming it flat on its back right in the middle of Stone Street, while as the knights regroup, one knight points at the demon and whispers that it looks downright creepy, yet his partner just shrugs it off, sneering that these guys are nothing compared to the black dragon they faced before. They think it's over for good. Then the monster's clawed hand on the ground suddenly twitches like it's about to rise again. Before the knight can even blink, the creature hurls a massive blast of energy straight at them. The blast slams into the buildings behind them, roaring with a massive explosion. Wood and shattered glass blast through the air everywhere while the knights scramble for cover, disbelief hits them like a punch. One of them gasps that this has to be some kind of joke because the monster staggers right back up, and even with its whole head blasted apart, it still charges straight for them. The monster keeps getting back up, and Siluria realizes this thing is just as stubborn as that demon Dagura, so she steps up, rips out her magic, shouts for an airlock, and fires a windlock spell that traps the creature inside a gigantic, spinning vortex. Siluria screams at Tilty to take the opening, and Tilty's already chomping at the bit to rush in and back her up. She thrusts her hands forward, barks a command into the darkness, and orders it to crush their enemies. Massive dark claws slam out and wrap around. It wrapped around the wind trap, then slammed the monsters in a brutal swirl of shadow and wind magic, while the knights just stared. The Hartman knights are freaking out over how strong Tilty is, while Tilty just giggles like it's nothing. Meanwhile, Siluria is already studying the battle, convinced these demons are weaker than Dagura. The monsters are still snarling and clawing for one last fight, and Siluria snaps the truth. There are still 2 of them left before it's over. Tilty is all fired up. She shouts that she'll give it her absolute best, sprinting forward right beside Siluria to slam the fight shut. But then a deep voice snaps, "What do you think you're doing?" And every single one of them freezes dead the moment a massive armored boot slams to the ground. Mabrib and the rest of the Debihip knights roll in like a storm, numbers blazing, eyes sharp, and you can feel trouble coming. Siluria spots him instantly, Mabrib, and the Hartman knights immediately clock it. He's a royal guard for the Debihip family who. He finally shows up and yells that they're here at last, then pushes everyone to team up and save the town, but right when he's mid-speech, the group. They ask what he's doing when his face starts warping. Then extra eyeballs sprout all over his skin, and everyone's just like, well. As Tilty and Siluria are stuck staring in total shock, the knights erupt into panic, praying this isn't real because one of Mabrib's massive eyes bulges out as he rasps out a final cheer for Lord Walger. Then wham, a massive flash of light erupts, and everyone's left staring, terrified like, is that the cursed tool's power right? Right as the crew scrambles back, a massive, clawed arm rips through the air, where the humans just were. The moment the Mabrib starts growling, it rants that Lord Walger will crush and rule everything, while the other knights shout that Hartman is the enemy, and then the tension just explodes. And boom, the transformation is done, and now they're nothing but mindless beasts, packed with way too many mouths and eyes. Tilty and the others finally piece it together. Those guards aren't guards anymore. Every single one of them has transformed into a demon. Siluria can barely force her voice through her teeth as the horror explodes in front of her, and she screams her brother's name while Tilty's crew starts falling apart. The story suddenly snaps back to what's going down with the other group. For now, Sold's manner looks almost calm on the surface. But in his room, he's sprawled out and sound asleep, until the truth hits. He's trapped in this insanely weird dream, and it gets worse. His eyes suddenly shoot wide open, like he's staring at the impossible and can't even process it, which snaps us straight into his vision, 2 colossal spirit beasts looming over him. And then the creatures burst into speech, swearing that the power they share isn't anything holy, it's the power of demons. They slam him with a harsh warning. The more he taps into that power, the more his body gets claimed by the darkness, bit by bit, until he has nothing left to fight with. And eventually, he'll morph into a full-on monster, ripping away his last scrap of humanity for good. The beasts hover over him one final time, demanding the Soul Doll Ranger tell them what he's doing next. The spirit beasts keep pushing Sold harder and harder, insisting it won't matter one bit whether he turns into a demon or loses every last shred of his humanity. But Saul doesn't even flinch. He just shrugs it off and says his fate was locked in a long time ago. Teetering between 2 towering beasts, he snaps out a promise. His only mission is to protect his villainous sister, and he thrusts his hand toward the spirits, barks for them to shut up, and demands they fall in line with his plan. The beasts seem to bow to his resolve, roaring that this is the real power behind the demon god style. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Frey bursts into the Ranger family manor with gear in hand, and she's not there to chat. She barges straight through the front door, screaming that she wants to know where Sold is hiding. Baba and the house guards get totally blindsided, panicking, scrambling to stop her, and blurting, "What do you need?" Frey drops that she's just friends, casually orders him to show her to his room, while Baba is still warning her that he needs to rest. She doesn't listen at all. She rips the bedroom door wide open and screams that he's still asleep. Sold finally breaks free and steps up, right by the window, stretching his arm and flexing his strength like he's checking if he's really back in motion. Frey suddenly bursts in with a huge grin, winks at him, and cheers that he's finally awake, while Baba just freezes, staring in total shock. Sold flashes her a warm smile and swears he literally just opened his eyes. So she strides up, lifts a long cloth-wrapped package into his hands, and tells him she just finished the very thing she promised him. Frey wears a proud grin as she tells him she handcrafted this, just for him. Sold is completely fired up, pounding the same words over and over. This sword is meant only for him, and it's like. And then bam, it's revealed as the legendary Sword of Soul, also called the Luminous Blade or the Magic Light Sword, a weapon so stunning it almost feels unreal. Sold freezes in total shock, stares at her and blurts, "You mean that name is real?" before quickly adding that it feels so light and so beautiful. Frey crosses her arms like she owns the moment, insisting that her luminous blade will 100% answer his magic sword style, until Soul snaps to attention and realizes what's coming in the. This is the legendary final weapon, something you only unlock at the very end, so it becomes the deadliest, strongest sword in existence. Frey snaps at Saul to be careful with the new weapon, and it leaves him stunned for a split second as she lays it out, she admits, straight up, that even though she forged the sword herself, she has no clue where its power truly stops. Frey wore a worried look as she blurted that she could only hope the blade wouldn't react too hard to his magic, because if it did, it might turn on him. Saul just stands there gripping the sword and tells her, "Don't worry, I've got this," like he already knows he can take it. He starts daydreaming about what's coming next, seeing colossal monsters and dragons he'll have to fight, and he knows that with this new magic light sword blazing in his hand, he's going to cut straight through anything that dares to stand in his way. Seeing his confidence, Frey can't stop herself. She shoots him a small, proud grin, and then she orders him to get moving, right as a violent shout tears through the street. A monsters hit town, and everything starts unraveling. The whole thing vanishes in a flash, and smoke and flames shoot up from the neighboring buildings as a terrifying horde of monsters crashes into the streets. Panic explodes. People scream, scatter, and scramble for cover. Zweig screams that they're in real trouble, like the odds are stacked against them. Then the guy beside him snaps, "Stay sharp and hold the line." Siluria lunges forward and yells that it's fine, because she'll protect Tilty. Tilty can only freeze there, shouting her own name back as well, no matter what happens. As one of the masked bandits barrels in, shrieking that they should die for Lord Walga, and then, right in the middle of his rant, everything goes to a stop, because a giant ball of energy plummets out of the sky and smashes into the battlefield, leaving everyone utterly stunned. Siluria jolts her gaze upward at the full scale of the attack, wide-eyed, because the moment she sees it, she knows exactly what it is, and when the black dragon's flame slash crashes into the ground, it detonates with insane force, obliterating everything in its path. The blast rips open the street, blasting a huge smoking crater in the middle, and it hurls the bandits flying every which way. So Siluria bursts into an excited shout the moment she spots the person standing there. Tilty blurts out Sold's name as Siluria whoops for her big brother, because he finally storms in, and he looks like he's ready to go to war, and Saul just stands there, those dark face markings blazing, smirking like he's already bagged the win. The bandits snap, start screaming at the kid for messing with their plans, right in front of everyone, but Saul doesn't even blink. He raises his blade to the sky and orders the spirit inside the sword to speak up. He blasts out a colossal ice wolf flash, and frozen energy rips across the entire area like a blizzard made of pure power. Sold hits the battlefield like a streak of lightning, slicing straight through the enemy group and smashing everyone standing in his way. The Hartman Knights start roaring like crazy as Siluria barrels forward, grinning so wide it's practically blinding. As the ice crystals drift down, she rockets straight into Sold's arms and squeezes him in this huge hug, and he just stands there frozen, still gripping his sword. Siluria bursts into tears because she's just so relieved he's okay, and Saul only gives her a soft smile. Then he whispers that he's sorry for freaking everyone out, especially Tilty. The whole crew surges around him, while Zweig and Aints shout at the top of their lungs that they're finally overjoyed. He's awake, back, and ready to throw down again. Sold locks eyes with his crew and blurts out, shaking with relief, Siluria and everyone else are safe. Zweig can't believe how wild those finishing moves were, but Audrey's even more stunned, because that sword didn't even crack after all that raw power. Frey glances at the wreckage with a quiet, relieved grin and says, "It's finally over, and I can't believe we made it to the end." And like he's nodding in agreement, he tells them he understands exactly how it all went down, while Siluria just sits there, watching both of them with a massive grin. That blade is unreal. It shrugs off the ice wolf's freezing frost and the black dragon's raging flames without snapping, and that's. Sold lifts the blade so everyone can see it, then tells them this weapon was forged for the Majin style. He plants his feet with swagger, basking in the spotlight as he tells the knights, This is the only sword like it anywhere in the entire world. Saluria is practically bursting with joy as she tells Frey, I really did forge the best sword, just like I promised. Frey cuts in and says it's not only the weapon that's leveled up, Sold's own techniques have gone way stronger too, and Sold nods like, yeah, and that sword is insanely dependable. Then Light's eyes widen with worry, and suddenly he can't shake the question, why is Imagine even here in the first place? Right nearby, the town's getting torn apart, fires exploding everywhere, so the knights sprint in to choke down the chaos, and so Ain't stares at the smoke curling up from the buildings and snaps into action. He has to get back to his young master's side, and he needs to do it right now. Audrey spots the Waldger soldiers morphing into Imagines, and his gut screams that their leader's pulling the strings, so he starts to wonder if he's behind it, and that thought makes. Drake's soul finally clocks that the Debbie Hip family might be the ones yanking the strings. Then Saluria snaps, screaming as she catches a horrifying glimpse of what's coming. As she tumbles into tears, like hears a voice calling her name, then her clairvoyance locks onto something so horrifying that it steals every breath from her. She blurts out that the whole town is in danger, and that the lake is in serious trouble, so now everyone's scrambling to ask her what she's actually seeing. In her vision, a massive shadow with blazing eyes crashes over the buildings, and it feels like the whole town is about to get swallowed whole. Sold shoots a grim, determined look and raises his sword high, ready to unleash his power and slice straight through whatever's coming for them. Meanwhile, over at the main noble mansion in the city, ominous clouds are gathering over the rooftops. Boots thunder down the hallway with pure urgency, and they sprint straight for the office. The massive double doors get obliterated with a thunderous kick, and the sound still echoes in the air as. Then he barges in like a thunderstorm screaming Waldger's name, yet the noble just sits there, calm as ever, sipping wine at his desk. Waldger glares at Leo with pure disgust, snaps that he's a brat, and rips into him for barging into the office without an invite. Yeah, this guy is fuming. Like doesn't back down for a second, he snaps back, yells that Waldger is being rude too, and declares he's finally had enough of whatever Waldger's been doing. He jabs a finger at the noble, and demands answers on the spot. He's got proof that Waldger's own people are the ones stirring all the chaos in town. And Waldger just fixes him with that annoyed glare, grumbling like, so this is what a total nuisance turns into. Then he blurts out, why haven't you left town yet? And it totally knocks him off guard, forcing him to snap back. What do you mean? Suddenly, Waldger snaps. He screams at the top of his lungs that it's all Like's fault, for trying to play hero and acting like some flawless ruler. He screams that the Debbie Hip family is the real power behind the whole town, and Lycan Ainz just watches, tearing into him and blasting him as absolute scum. He's baffled that he'd spill it now, but he tells Waldger the moment he knows the truth, the corrupt noble's finished. The whole room drops silent for a heartbeat. Then Waldger bursts out with this nasty, pig-like cackle, roaring that nothing is ever really over. He tells them this is only the beginning, and once they spot the sweat on Ain's face, it hits them. Something massive is about to explode. Waldger lurks behind his desk, eyes wide with panic, realizing the power he's been using is slipping out of his grip, and then this disgusting, multi-eyed, fleshy blob starts blasting out of his hand, swelling way faster than he can control, like an iron strike in their chest. They freeze in shock, staring as the noble they served turns into a full-on monster right before their eyes. Meanwhile, Sold and the rest of the crew are hauling ass through the town streets, racing toward the mansion as fast as humanly possible while Paul Sold leans in and grills Saluria. Are you 100% sure that's the place from your vision? And when she shoots back, I'm positive. They waste zero time and keep pressing forward. Tilty blurts out that there's a colossal shadow hanging over Waldger's place, so monstrous it could wipe out the whole town if they don't move right now. She snaps that she'll never forgive something this messed up, then fires back at the guys. Shut it down now, before it's too late. He slams on the brakes, skids to a stop, and yells, everyone wait, as he points ahead because something feels horribly wrong about the way Waldger's mansion starts to rattle, like the whole place is getting slammed by an earthquake that only targets that one spot. Then the roof detonates. This huge dark monster with glowing eyes rips through the stone like a battering ram, and it's clearly here to smash everything in its path. Sold and the crew stare in total disbelief at the mansion as he blurts out in stunned shock. Then Light barrels through the gates, yelling for everyone to get back, while Sold realizes he and Ainz are barely about to make it out. But he keeps yelling that the monster in front of them is Waldger for real, and that the guy used some cursed tool to twist him into something else. Sold just freezes there, trying to make sense of how a human could flip into something like that, so damn fast. From where the camera sits, the entire crew shrinks into tiny specks as they stand before the record, utterly dwarfed by it. By that colossal beast as it starts roaring, claiming the whole town as its own, and swearing nobody's getting it away from him. Now it's totally massive, an outright demon with a skull face and this huge eye blazing right in the middle of its chest. It unleashes a thunderous roar and declares that Tilty is his, standing tall over the crumbling ruins of the mansion. Staring up at the wreck, Sold's face twists with pure disgust. He spits, a loathsome demon, but the monster doesn't even flinch. He just stares down at them like they're nothing, and he's about to erase every one of them. Sold snaps into action, blasts a wall of wind forward, and screams that he's not letting this happen. Then Eric barrels in beside him, shouting that the monster's a joke if it thinks it can boss this place around, because protecting the town is literally their job. Sold shrieks like's name, and while Zweig and Siluria cower at the edge, terrified screams spill out as they beg their big brother, right as Ain't snaps orders for the knights to fall in behind the young master, and the whole squad screams back, snapping to attention and gearing up to charge. The whole group looks like tiny ants under a towering demon, squatting over the rubble like a nightmare, watching them struggle. The monster just locks eyes with them and stares them down. Those empty, dead sockets make it look even more terrifying. Everyone scrambles together for one gigantic combined assault, magic and steel flying at the beast with every last ounce of strength they've got. But Walger just stands there, barking at them like they're nothing but a tiny thorn, while the crew stares in disbelief, because their best shot didn't even leave a scratch. The monster snarls at them to get lost, and right as the words hit the air, a weird light starts churning and swelling deep in its throat. And then boom, it unleashes a colossal energy beam that obliterates everything in its path. The monster looms over the ruins, then erupts in a nasty, booming laugh that shakes the whole place while the knights tear through the dust, screaming orders nonstop, checking whether the young master and the princess are safe. Like tells them they're safe for now since everyone poured their magic into a shield, but Sora can't shake the shock of the monster-level power they're actually facing. Sold yanks at Walger's tilted clothes, calling him a monster for trashing his humanity just to chase his warped desires. But Walger shrugs it off and vows he'll wipe every last scrap of trash out of this town. He blasts again, an earth-shaking blast that slices through the city like it's made of paper. And Sold and the others can only stare in total disbelief as the beam obliterates everything in its path. A massive explosion erupts and lights up the entire area, and there it stands, still towering, just a black silhouette carved out by the flames. Buildings start collapsing all around, and people scatter in every direction, sprinting like their lives depend on it, because they do. And the local families are totally falling apart, crying, screaming, and watching their home get smashed to pieces. Like and Tilty stood shoulder to shoulder, staring out at the ruined town as people broke and suffered everywhere, pure chaos. And finally snaps, roaring Walger's name at the top of his lungs. That giant monster just stands there, cackling like it owns the world, while everyone else scrambles to survive and screams for help. And just like that, something enormous crashes in out of nowhere. A colossal flame dragon lunges and bites straight into its neck. A souled air suddenly lunges through the sky out of nowhere, screaming Walger's name at the top of his lungs as he throws everything he's got into that strike. He slams in his black dragon flame slash, and the blaze snaps around the monster's head like a furious crown. The impact slams into the monster and snaps its head backward, and then, boom, Saldo lands cleanly on a roof right nearby. Light blurts out in stunned shock, and Siluria screams for her big brother as everyone watches the fight erupt in front of them. Sold locks in his stance and fires off, so how is that? But his eyes are already snapping back, hunting for proof. Yeah, turns out. The monster isn't finished. Thick black blood starts pouring from its neck while it just stands there, like it's daring fate to blink first. The monster unleashes a brutal, heart-stopping roar that rattles everything in sight. Pure chaos, total domination, and it isn't even close to stopping. He sold watches from the rooftop, and then, as the beast's neck stitched itself back together before his eyes, he swore he finally understood what was happening, convinced he'd cracked the monster's secret, so yeah, he finally clocks it. This monster is the Dark Giant, and it shrugs off every hit, regenerating no matter how brutal the damage is. Sold's stomach drops when the truth clicks. This isn't just some enemy, it's the final boss the villain controls at the very end of the game, and he can't believe this is happening here, of all places, and he's left wondering, did saving Tilty flip the whole script? Because the fate of this world is shifting way faster than he ever expected, and it's leaving him reeling. He's thrown into a brutal jam, because in the game the hero wipes the floor with holy power, and Soy realizes he's got nothing like that in his hands right now. He's weighing whether to unleash Tilty's dark power to erase that monster, just like he did when he battled Dagura. But he slams the brakes right away, because he knows this power is far too dangerous to toy with if he slips. If that darkness swells anymore, it could spell the end for her. And Sold is terrified that this move will only slam Tilty even faster into the villain destiny he's been begging her not to become. Sold teeters on the roof, trying to keep his nerves from snapping, swearing to himself that he'll fight this fate no matter the cost. Then he whips his head around, hunting for his sword, insisting it's somewhere nearby. But from the cliff, the city looks like it's already been wiped out. Dark giants smashing through walls and flattening houses, as a mysterious leader stands on the edge, staring like it's all unfolding for a reason. The masked man glares over the wreckage and declares it splendid, aiming the words straight at Mr. Walger. Then he smirks and says Walger's wild hunger to control everything has finally dragged in a massive demonic force, and with a chilling stare fixed on you, he grins and says the real experiment is just now kicking off. He glares down at the people hiding in the streets, then barks to Tilty, priestess of darkness, and wonders right out loud how she'll even try to fight the power while Tilty just stands there in the middle of the wreckage. She's shaking with terror, tears streaming down her face as she watches the whole world crumble around her. Nearby, Siluria's falling apart too. She's sobbing, gripping tightly onto him as his breaking point hits, screaming through the way their city gets wrecked. Even the knights are losing it and screaming as they try to fight back, but the attack is so huge they're totally outmatched, and it just keeps getting. Which gets even worse when the monster unleashes a blast that flattens the buildings around it. Parents snatch up their kids and sprint for their lives, while people keep getting slammed to the ground left and right. Tilty pleads for the nightmare to shut down, her eyes blazing wide with tears, but all she gets back is a chilling dark chuckle that tears through the chaos. Tilty stands there trembling as dark energy claws its way up around her. She snaps, "I can't do this anymore," and vows she'll never forgive them for what's happening. Tilty snaps, screams her lungs out, then a terrifying dark mark blooms straight across her forehead. A massive monster of wood and shadows bursts up from the ground, and Tilty stands right on its head. She screams again that she'll never forgive them, and he slams back onto the ground, utterly stunned, while Siluria stands right beside him, white-faced, terrified, blurting out, "What the heck is that massive thing?" A half-bodied giant looms over the ruined city, towering like a living nightmare that just stepped out of hell. From a rooftop, he's selling watches when the wooden giant locks horns with the bone monster, and then it hits him. He knows exactly what he's seeing, and he can. Tilty's dark power is blasting off her right now, and he can't believe it. It's way stronger than he ever expected. But that bone giant refuses to yield, planting itself in the middle of the whole record-setting chaos. Tilty leans forward from her perch atop the giant's head and commands the darkness. Right then, with tears pour down her cheeks as she screams at the monster, "Do it, strike and attack." The dark giant swings a brutal, earth-shaking punch, and it slams into the bone giant's face, rattling the bones as the impact finishes. The bone giant screams a brutal, soul-crushing cry as the impact's force rips into its body, tearing it apart. Tilty stands atop her summon's head, staring down while the wreckage sprawls beneath her, and that giant looms over everything like it owns the sky. She's sobbing uncontrollably, screaming at the top of her lungs, begging the enemies to just vanish. Flat on the ground, the viewer is completely stunned by what they see, calling it the Dark Giant, and insisting its power is on a whole other level. He points out that every single time the Dark Giant even brushes an enemy, Walger's monster gets gnawed down chip by chip, just like wondering if the Dark's power to wipe everything out has somehow grown even stronger, while that bone giant keeps shrieking in raw agony. Siluria tilts her head, praising Tilty for pulling this off, yet her eyes are packed with worry, like something's about to go terribly wrong. She replays the past. Back then, she could only move the arms of darkness, and now she realizes everything's totally flipped, because the giant's whole body finally finishes forming right in the heart of the city. Tilty stands on the giant's head, arms flung wide, screaming that this is exactly what she wanted. She looks totally wrecked, gushing that this dark power is breathtaking as it finally crashes down on her. She screams at the giant to keep pushing, turning every last shred of despair into something even louder, while as she barks the command, letting the darkness swallow every last thing in sight. Tears pour down her face as she screams that the enemy crushed innocent lives, and she won't ever forgive them. The dark giant hoists its massive, swirling hand high into the air, and for a split second, the tilt makes the tiny figure on its shoulder look even smaller as the moment hangs. As the bone monster squeals in pure terror, It can't stop what hits next. The dark giant slams a brutal right hook into the bone monster's head, smashing it apart as it shatters mid-impact. The impact hit like a thunderclap, shattering the creature's jaw into ruthless, flying pieces. Lycan Siluria can only stare from the ground, completely stunned by the wild, earth-shaking power Tilty is flaunting. Like someone watching the chaos unfold, he demands to know why it's all happening, while the rest stays unshaken, souled firm in the smoke. Tilty snaps, bursting into tears as she demands, "Why are you blocking me?" and screams for her brother. Saul just blurts out Tilty's name while he stands there in the crater, sword raised, but he leans in and tells her, "You've got to find your strength, and never surrender the reason you're here," swearing he'll keep her from slipping into darkness.